Hello and welcome. You're watching the SABC News Channel, independent and impartial. Thanks for joining us. I'm Peter Ndoro in Johannesburg.
The Results Operations Centre in Tshwane. And Peter, you're going to get some of the latest news in the Free State. A election station apparently burnt down, but then do come back to us, lots of analysis. So a lot of the prediction models are about turnout, but whatever the turnout, can we celebrate when 9 million voters are unregistered? We'll be speaking to a researcher from Mistra.
That's Francis Hurd at the Results Operations Centre, and we'll be getting into those stories in more detail. But first, your headlines. Delays and protests on day 2 of special votes. More police expected to be deployed in Viljoenskroon in the Free State after a clinic and a hall were torched overnight. Independent Electoral Commission officials say that everything is on track for tomorrow's vote when 26 million South Africans are expected to make their mark. And the Home Affairs offices around the country will be open until 9 o'clock tomorrow to accommodate the thousands of people who still need to collect their IDs. Right, let's get straight into your elections news. The IEC says that at least 2 police officers will be deployed to each polling station around the country. The deployment of the police will vary depending on the volatility of different areas. The Electoral Commission briefed the media on its state of readiness this afternoon.
There were some challenges encountered yesterday and in the early part of this morning. The Electoral Commission is encouraged to note that a significant decline in community protests this week. In those instances where protest action did continue, the South African police services were quick to intervene to restore calm. A minimum number of 2 police officers will be deployed to each voting station, and the SAPS will remain on high alert in high-risk areas to ensure no disruptions to the elections.
Now, more police are expected to be deployed in Ramotolotsi in Viljoenskroon and other areas in the Free State where sporadic service delivery protests have emerged. The latest incident is the burning of a clinic and a community hall as the residents continue to demand better service delivery. Free State Police spokesperson Montansi Makele says that police will be out in full force to ensure stability in the area. Well, let's now go live to Viljoenskroon, and our reporter there, Thabiso Radebe, is standing by with the latest. Thabiso, thanks very much for joining us. These are disturbing reports that are coming through. What do we know about this fire and this burning of this clinic and this building?
Yeah, the information that we received, Peter, is that a community since yesterday, they went on rampage after complaining that the municipality has failed to address their complaints or grievances. The grievances include lack of water, they are not drinking clean water, and also jobs here. Jobs are being given to friends and girlfriends, and also they are complaining about lack of service delivery in general in this area. It is the area of Mpumalanga local municipality. You remember that last week it was Kroonstad in Maokeng, where community members went to the street and started burning, and also they burned the municipal building and also the post office there. So this morning it was around about 4 o'clock in the morning, early in the morning, police received information about the burning of a community hall here in Ramolotsi, Viljoenskroon. As you can see, Peter, the hall is behind me here. It's the hall that is being used for voting. It was used yesterday, and also it was expected to be used by special voters today, so it was burned down. And also unknown people also burned down the clinic here at Viljoenskroon. So what I can tell you or explain to you, Peter, what I've seen in the township, it's still tense in this township. Earlier on, we've seen a lot of school children who were released early, but some of them, when we spoke with them, they were saying that there's no water at school, so they were released by their teachers. But fortunately, Peter, I managed to get two of the residents here who will explain to us their concerns and also their complaint. I spoke with one of them who was saying that, who told me that they are not going to, she's not going to vote tomorrow as we go into the polls tomorrow. But I'll start on my right-hand side here, Peter, to talk to one of them. Earlier on, re buile ka ditletlebo tsa lona, dillo tsa lona ke tse feng, ditseko tsa lona ke tse feng?
Tseko tsa rona ke dula ka marikana ka mane ha ke tsebe le councilor la marikana le fondageng lena dijojo teng ke di tlisitswe mhlane le lefu la motho wa masepala ha o ya lo bulela pompo metsi hatswe and re ba kgethile ho tloa mono sebetsa mesebetsi ya mebedi o sebetsa basi o sebetsa rona and ya rona ha di etse motlakase o no le siko mane ke le ke a ntsha koloi ya ka nna ke a tlamela hore ke le batla ntho tsa motlakase mane botabile le fondageng lena ha itshwenye ke tlo mmona hape nene ho sana tlo mpela re ke tlo vote ho vote ke tlo voutela ma fight re bona re tla e fight jwang ka nqenana mara ha le mmuso nana le councilor ka ke le tsebe ya marikana mane ha na tla o supentshang yena na motho a motsebang ho ikwalletse ka defense rona re dikgokgo mara re mo kgethile o dula le rona so engwe ya bobedi go re batho ba soka ba gola batho bana ba mmuso rona ba kena hohle batho na batho ba performance ba tsamisang dipidisi education ha ba so gole bana le performance ba jai ba tsamaya ka maoto ka education ke metsi ke ya fail re be re ka mala ke bana ke bonkgono ke metlakase ha o lo ngodisa motlakase wa mahala o na le ngwana a sebetsa mara re tlo fa ngwana wa sebetsa ha eba ngwana o yena a o fe tšhelete ya go reke motlakase ko fe mathata a mangata di ya re diphikitsane di entse ke rekile ntlo matšhaeneng mmuso ngone ya wa le matiri ka lo bontsha go kena ka tlung ha o bula le mati ya ke rekile ba itse re di reke ke di 40 eats mara no tjena na ntlo ya low quality ha o bula dipompo di etsang ba bangata ka monana ka matlong a maisi magashule ka ba tsitse di bathroom ha ona nix e sebetsa mmuso ngona wa rona ona jwale ha re tshintse masijiki zinto re ka mafight re bono etsa lai has dine we khathetse
now unana ho tsheswa ha di community buildings ke yona tsela
go bolela ha se yona tsela ntwe ba etsang iphoso mara jwale mmuso la rona wa re tella ba re bone ba re ba di dikelelo ba re tella ho tshesa se solution mara ba re tella o ya ho bona wa bua ha o tswa ba tshe ba re tella jwale o tlo bua jwale motho o tella and twe ke bone go ba utlwisa thupa ha
Peter, explaining to you, translating what she's been saying, she's complaining about water here. People are getting sick because of the water. She's also saying that the current government is taking people for granted, and she is going to vote the EFF. And fortunately, Peter, I'm going to talk to one community member here who earlier told me that she's not going to vote. So we want to know, why is she not going to vote? When I vote,
ANC because of mesebetsi a hlaile ha ona mo ba tsamisang ka di interview kapa ba tla CV tsa batho ba hira ka hore wena o mang ke ntwe ba yetsa monana so ha ona molemo re ba voutela ntse re dula re voutela batho ba iwana ha ona gore ba tshintse ho kene batho ba bang ene ba dula ba phela monate malapeng a bona o tsena le councilor la ka mo ha leyo le dula toropong mara ha tsebe go ka mo ho phelwa jwang no go dula hlathing e kana batho ba lahlela 20 ona mo ha ona nix a etsa eng bana ha no tseba gore phela jwang ka education mara no thudula ka education tlamelo tseba situation ka education
ka education ke safe
go dula go kwalletswe metsi ka education go tloa mo dula e mitshurisi ka education mo batho ba batho ba rekisa ba lahlela di-pampers tsa bana mo strateng because of 20 ha intshui ke ntho e tlamele re phele ka ga yona eo.
Peter, I'm also going to explain to what she's been saying. She's saying that there are sewer spillages in this area, troubling the community here. There's no ward councillor who's assisting them when they are looking for assistance. So there's no use for her to go and vote because she has been voting, but with no assistance. I was expecting to speak to the general of the SAPS in the Free State, but he's not here, just to get a picture on in terms of their readiness, what's going to happen happen today and tomorrow to have free and fair elections by the community here who are going to vote. But let me tell you something. I was speaking with her. She's saying that she's not going to vote. I was speaking to elderly people who are saying that they are upbeat. They want to go and vote. They want to go and vote for their party who will deliver services to the people. So it's the situation here. Though the situation come, it's still very tense because of a lot of police and other roads being barricaded.
Tabiso, thanks very much indeed. That's where we're going to leave it for the time being. That's our reporter Tabiso Khadebe, who's in Viljoenskroon in the Free State, where a building, a local clinic, has been burnt by protesters that are demanding that the government has let them down, and some are saying they're not going to vote, and others saying they're going to vote for another party because of a lack of service delivery issues such as water. Now, businesses and schooling have been disrupted in Vuwani and surrounding villages outside Thohoyandou in Limpopo as the boycott called by the pro-Makado task team begins. The boycott is over a demarcation dispute. Residents want to be reinstated into the Makado municipality from the Collins Chabane municipality. Only one fuel station is operating in the area. Workers at the fuel stations say that they are anxious working during the boycott. Street vendors who often open stalls early have stayed away, and some residents say that the boycott is an inconvenience. A little earlier we spoke to our reporter in Vuwani, Lutendo Bobodi, on the situation there.
We are in Vuwani, where you can see a lot of people are beginning to gather here, where community leaders will be addressing them in as far as their resolution to boycott the vote is concerned. We were told earlier that Minister Zweli Mkhize could be here, but now it has been confirmed that he may not be here. Also, Jerindo, who is the MEC for Coxstar in the province, was expected to be here, but they tell us that he's now clutching at straws. There is any confirmation if he will come here. But I just want to talk to people here who also have vowed not to vote tomorrow. Now, I'm going to be joined by Abraham Gamera. His surname Gamera means a camel. He's been wearing this coat, Blaine, since this Vuwani demarcation thing started, and he says he's not going to put it off until the whole issue has been resolved. I'm not sure if he goes to bed with it, but I'm going to talk to him now, and I'm going to talk to him in Chivenda, and I'll do the translation. But why wasn't a vote?
Aringa voting ori chiveche maspara wa Makado raviswa ne batho ba Vuwani ra iswa kha maspara wa Collins Chabane ba re fambanya ba thomo ori budzori ne re buswa kha Collins Chabane rodzi ba budzana o thoma ba sathu abango da ba connecta batho bo soko zwi ita ba mona ngange ba wana batho ba se ba ranga phanda ba se mahosi ba ba roba ba phana na bolori batho bo tenda and batho bo shumisa dzi roll call batho ba tshi koda dzi khoroni ba sa zwi zwo ri ba khojiwa ba khoiswa kha Collins Chabane sa ba ke guna ba kala zwino rine sam thondo no aluwa ndo ralo athiri ndili zhakandila ndabona community tshi khogedziwa ndatenda ndili zhakandila la Vuwani 1994 ndine reito uri mukuso wa ANC ubuse ri ko supporta mara zwino ri kwana uri tshitshavha tshi khogedziwa arilwe arina ila zwa uri muvenda mchangani rine ri robebiwa ri songo machangani.
Basically, he's saying he's been in the thick of things since 1994 in as far as leadership in this community is concerned, and he says that this demarcation thing has been shoved down their throats, and they are adamant that they are not going to the newly formed Collins Chabane municipality. They want to be reincorporated into Makado municipality. And I'm also going to invite here another community member here who also will speak in Chivenda.
No, ndingasi vote nga nthani ya muvhuso wa ANC ndi muvhuso wa corruption uwalwisa ulutanya tshakha mbili ende zwi songo tea ende havhala vhathu ro dzula navho mara wa lutanya wo ita masipala a malamulele u songo ri kwama u songo ḓivhisa wa tou finalize wa dzhia tsheo zwino zwi amba uri a si muvhuso wa vhoriṋe ndi muvhuso nga tshavho vhone vhane haningei nṱha ende matshelo nda ndi ḓo humbula nda ḓo ḓivhi mani nda ndi khou tou wisha uri ANC matshelo i dabele i vhone ḽiṅwe ḽihoro ḽi phanḓa matshelo tsha ṱoḓa u pfha tshithu nga ANC yo ri tshwenye.
Well, he's saying that he's not going to vote because the government that's in power now is so arrogant. It does a lot of things without consulting the people on the ground. And he says he wishes that the ANC does not do well tomorrow in the general election. From now, Blaine, this is how it is now. People are starting to gather here and the leadership will be addressing them just to move forward in terms of what they're going to do tomorrow during the election.
All right, so that was Lutendo Bobodi, who is reporting from Limpopo a little bit earlier on. Let's go now to southern KwaZulu-Natal. Mzimkhulu voters there are hoping for a strong police presence to ensure smooth voting tomorrow. Political killings have put the rural community in the spotlight in recent months, the most prominent being the murder of former ANC Youth League leader Sindiso Magaqa. Incidentally, 3 men accused of Magaqa's murder appeared in the Mzimkhulu Magistrates Court today.
Political tensions in Mzimkhulu reached crisis levels in 2017 when 5 ANC activists were killed. Magaqa's killing was widely condemned, as were that of other officials, the council speaker Khaya Thobela and Councillor Mduduzi Chibase. It's emerged in the Morane Commission of Inquiry into Political Violence that the killing stemmed from a fight over tenders and positions. Locals expressed concerns about the tensions in the area. They say they will vote for development and employment, which they hope will bring stability.
I'm very much concerned about the safety because we're not safe really. Mzimkhulu is very much high-risky area.
I'm concerned about my children when they're starting killing each other. Why they're doing this? Why they don't call the old people? If there's something, they don't really understand it.
Relatives of Magaqa said they were unhappy about delays in the politically related cases.
What we want is justice. This justice must be like this. The people who committed suicide, who committed this murder, must be arrested. They must face the consequences so that it must be a lesson.
Mzimkhulu municipality is still without a speaker since the killing of Thobela 2 years ago. This has had a negative effect on the service delivery at the already troubled municipality. Vusi Khumalo, SABC News, Mzimkhulu.
Well, family members of Sindiso Magaqa are calling for the magistrate handling the matter to recuse himself from the case. The Mzimkhulu Magistrates Court was expected to hand down judgment in the bail application of the 3 men accused of Magaqa's murder, but the magistrate could not make it to court. All right, that's what's been happening around the country. We'll continue with our special elections coverage on day 2 of the special votes, ahead, of course, of the big voting day tomorrow. And at the Rock, the Results Operations Centre, we find Francis Hurd. Francis, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Peter. Not much happening here. A lot of journalists milling around and a lot of IEC officials, but the politicians are yet to arrive en masse. You can see this is the preparations, the calm before the storm tomorrow. So this time tomorrow, voting will be well underway, and then later in the evening, the first results will start trickling in. Let's look at some of the expectations around this election and around how important it is. I'm joined by Nkwe Moncha. He's a researcher with Mistra. Thank you for being with us, Nkwe. So yesterday people were saying there's not the excitement that they remember from previous elections around the special votes. Now this is just special votes, so I don't know how much we can extrapolate to the real election. But are you expecting any sort of apathy? Does it point to anything in terms of expectations expectations for tomorrow?
Well, Francis, thank you. When it comes to the special votes that are taking place now, I can only say to you, it's too early to tell what's going to happen when it comes to the national votes tomorrow. But then at the moment, from what I'm seeing from my side, everything is fine. So we cannot
wait
tell
what
we should say wait and see, because there's so many things happening around the country at the moment. As you would know, there's some strikes and there's some places being torched and so on. So up until it's tomorrow morning, we cannot say.
Yeah. One thing you are watching is turnout. But before we even get to turnout is always a percentage of registered voters. And we know that there has been a lack of drive for some reason. Is it fair enough to say that when it comes to young people registering?
Well, when it comes to young people registering, I would think that people have lost interest. Where you've always have seen a greater registration, starting from the previous four elections, you'd see the registration goes up. But then when it comes to the turnout, I remember the registration is only a percentage of people who have registered. On top of that, there are still those who are eligible but not registered. We then come to the turnout, which is on that registration. Check the first elections you had 88% turnout. The second one you had 77.
So that was 1994. We had 88% turnout, so that's a percentage of registered voters.
Registered voters turnout.
But that's incredible.
And then we moved on, yes, it great. Then we moved on to 77, which is a decline. From there we moved to 77 again. It was stable, but then in the 2014 it was 73. So 73% of the voters. When you go sit down and calculate the numbers, you realize that though there's an increase in the registered voters, there's a decrease in the actual voters compared to the previous elections.
In terms of turnout.
In terms of
Could
turnout,
we see an even lower turnout this year?
Like I said earlier, it's early to tell. People want to take action. People want to vote. But then at the same time, there's so many things happening around the country between the political parties and government and around the country as a whole. So we'll wait to see tomorrow what's happening, if people are going to vote or not, especially the youth. It will be interesting to see if the youth are voting or not.
Yeah.
Because if they don't come out, you then start asking yourself, what's going to be happening five years down the line? Who's going to vote? 10 years down the line, who will be there to vote if the youth is not voting now?
And either way, 9 million South Africans, you were saying, are unregistered. And a lot of those are young people. So they are not even going to be going near the voting station tomorrow.
That's very worrying. I think it's probably because of the economic state of the country. But then people have lost interest, especially the youth, with the rumors and the news that are going around. So if you have 9 million people unregistered, and amongst those, remember, you've got people who are mentally unstable, who lives on the street, and you've got people who are homeless, you've got people who are just on drugs and they don't care about votes. But then the question still comes back again. Who will be voting 15 years down the line? Because if people who are voting are only the elderly, they are living. They won't be here for long. And then who's going to be in charge?
So you're concerned that young people aren't sort of taking the reins of their country?
Yeah, you can say that. Young people are not taking charge of their responsibility. It's our responsibility to make sure that the democracy lives on. But then if we don't go out to the polls, then...
Apparently in KwaZulu-Natal, that's where we had the highest number of young people registering, which the EFF is seeing as a good sign, because they think their support base will come from young people.
Not really.
Why?
Yes, KwaZulu-Natal has got a huge number of young people registering, but then you cannot say then that every young person or majority of the young people are for the EFF. You look into the trends of the EFF, it's not only amongst young people. It is down in the informal settlement, it is down in the rural areas, where people have said, we don't know who to run to anymore. We're just trying new political parties or new vocal political parties. Those who are loud and are promising, or those who are just upcoming saying, okay, if we try them, maybe they will come up for us. And then informal settlement, that's where you find the most base of the EFF. If you check around Gauteng, for example, Mamelodi and Atteridgeville, and Tembisa as well, that's where you get to see that the EFF in the past elections, they've gathered more votes than any other places.
So this will be something interesting to watch. Shack dwellers versus RDP houses, urban, rural. We have to stop it there, but hopefully we can chat to you again. Nkwe Moncha, researcher from Mistra, and that's it from us for now. We'll be back with you a bit later from the Results Operations Centre, The Rock.
Francis, thanks very much indeed. So that's what's happening in Pretoria, Tshwane, but we'll be returning there a little bit later on, as Francis says. We continue to go around the country, catching up with our reporters to give us a sense of what's happening on the ground. And in the Eastern Cape, in Mthatha, we find Zimkita Matingwane there. Thanks very much for joining us, Zimkita. Day 2 of the special votes. How's that been going? And how are people getting ready for the major election day tomorrow?
A lot of people, Peter, sound excited for the day that they've been waiting for, which is tomorrow, for millions of South Africans to go and cast their votes. But where we are right now is Mthatha CBD. This is the hub of the OR Tambo region, which has about 1.5 million residents. And here at this voting center behind us, we are expecting more than 4,000 people to come here to cast their ballots tomorrow. And as we were preparing for this crossing, we have seen tables being brought in, and we are told that on this street here at Leeds Road, it will be completely closed tomorrow, and there are 3 marquees that are going to be erected here to give space to more people to come and vote here, because this is one of the biggest polling stations around Mthatha. While we have been speaking to the people that are excited for tomorrow, they are saying that they're excited to go to the polls because now they will be making a decision about their future. Who is the person that they want to lead them post these general elections? But when we're talking about the rural parts of the Eastern Cape, we have not seen a lot of people really registering to become special voters. A lot of polling stations only had about 50 people making their way through, and in this station, since we have been here since this morning, only one person just made his way through here moments ago, because most people who want special votes are those who are relying on home visits, and we're told that 3 home visits were made. However, those who were registered for special votes and did not come to this center here today will get a chance tomorrow to actually come and cast their ballots. But it's still about 2 hours for people to still come here because they're closing at 5 o'clock. But now we're just going to go inside, Peter, just to see how things are moving in terms of security, in terms of their preparations for tomorrow. And we can, as you can see there, police officers are on guard, making sure that when people come here to cast their ballots, they will be safe. We're now just going to have this conversation with this old man here with us, who is going to tell us how you have felt. You are the first person to come here to cast your special vote. Usivanjani tatam?
I know kumandi ufumasa indoba ube nalethuba lokwazi ukuthi uvote.
Okay. Njengomuntu oneziphako zomzimba, zindoni enihale into baziqwalaselwe ngulorhulumente nimvotelayo ngokuzawungena emva kuba kuqityiwe uvoto?
Okay, the opportunities for indaba yomsebenzi ne provisions like for the housing, yabo. Bese benazo indawo zokuhlala nanto.
He's basically saying that he wishes that after the elections, people who have disabilities like him will have more jobs, and also that there will be decent housing for them. So this is the polling station that is expected to be packed tomorrow, and all eyes are on this polling station because this is where counting for the OR Tambo region is going to take place for those millions of voters who will be flocking to different polling stations around the OR Tambo region. That's all we have time for now. Peter, it's back to you in Johannesburg.
Zimkita, thanks very much indeed. That's Zimkita Matungwane, who's in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape. And as she says, a pretty slow day. Just one special voter in that voting station in Mthatha. But it will probably be very busy tomorrow, as she says. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be crossing around the country. We continue. We'll be going to the northwest as well as Secunda. Stay with us for that and more.
We do not just speak, we let every voice in our nation find full expression in language and in culture. We do not just teach, we empower all people with education. We do not just bring you the news, we place you where the news is happening. We do not just entertain, we take you on journeys. We do not just broadcast sport, we create an arena for sporting heroes to inspire you. Ours is not just a job, it's a calling to ensure that everyone in our nation is informed, educated, and entertained. We're able to do this because you do your part. SABC TV licenses, it's all made possible by you.
On Trends Travel, we bring you a full guide on all things lifestyle related. With so much to discover, we give you comprehensive reviews of places to visit, music, travel, and food. We also explore the arts, whether on or off stage. All this and more, be sure to tune into Trends Travel, Saturdays at 5:30 p.m.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching SA Today, and this is on day 2 of the special votes that are taking place across the country. 700,000 people registered for their special votes because they weren't able to vote tomorrow, when the about 26 million people will be heading out to cast their ballots in the 2019 elections. Now, we've been going around the country in our special broadcast trying to get a feel of what's happening on day 2 of the special votes, and also get a sense of how people are anticipating tomorrow's votes. Well, let's now go to one of our major centres in terms of energy supply, and that's Secunda in Mpumalanga. And there we'll find our reporter, Sibongile Mkhanimpolweni. Sibongile, thanks very much indeed for joining us. How's the special voting been going today?
Good afternoon, Peter. The special voting is very slow in almost all the polling stations. People come once in 2 hours. You see one person, and then the next in another hour. Even the IC officials that we've spoken to, they are saying as they are going to the home visits, the province has 1,772 polling stations that will be opened tomorrow. And today and yesterday, they only opened those polling stations that had those special votes application. Just 85,000 special votes were applicants here in the province. But I must say that it is the same as yesterday. Some people are unreachable. Some people have relocated. They are not found at the residence where they have the address. They have written the addresses. But again, the IEC officials saying that they must not worry. Tomorrow, when polling stations open at 7 a.m., they can come there and vote tomorrow, even though they had applied for special votes. Another thing that we found out, Peter, because it was a concern to me as well as a journalist, because I'm not registered where I am assigned to work, even though I'm registered in the same province. The IEC officials saying that you will still vote for both national and provincial if you are within that same province that you registered at, even though you won't be registering at that voting station where even though you won't be voting at that registration voting station where you had registered before. So if you are still in Mpumalanga and you had registered in Mpumalanga, on the other side, you will still get the 2 ballot papers, the national one and the provincial one, which is what most people were asking us. It was a confusion whether you would get 1 ballot or 2, but that since has been cleared, Peter.
So that's great news. So it doesn't matter where you are within the province as long as you vote in the province that you're registered. So you can go to any polling station as long as it's in the province that you're registered in, and then you'll get those 2 ballot papers to fill your vote. So I guess tomorrow is going to be a very busy day in Secunda. It's a big area, particularly when one considers Sasol is right in the middle of it.
Yes, especially the people who are working at Sasol, and it's also surrounded by other mining companies, coal mines around the area. So those people will be voting tomorrow as well. That's why the officials are saying that they are ready, and in terms of safety as well, the police have been deployed in these polling stations, and those areas where there's been protests, there are 6 police officials deployed in 1 station just to make sure, as a precautionary measure, to make sure that people are safe when going to those polling stations. Another thing, Home Affairs offices will also be opened, because there was another lady who came to one voting station where we were at. She has lost her ID and she came there frantic, panicking that she doesn't have an ID, what's going to happen to her. And she was told that, no, don't worry, tomorrow Home Affairs is opening from 7 until 9, so you can go there and get a temporary ID and come back. As long as you are registered to vote, you will still be allowed to vote, Peter.
All right, so Sibongile will cross to you, I think, a little bit later on again. But thanks very much indeed for that update for the time being. That's Sibongile Mkanimpolweni, who's in Secunda, giving us an update there. So a pretty slow day in terms of the voting for special votes today, but probably going to be really busy there tomorrow. All right, let's go to the Results Operations Centre. Frances is there, and I wonder where in the country she's going to be crossing to. Frances?
I think, Peter, maybe the Northwest. Let's do that. Colin Lemawane, our colleague, is in the Northwest in Mahikeng. So, Colin, you know, Rustenburg, that whole area, always one to watch, especially since Marikana. Just tell us what's been going on in the Northwest thus far.
Well, Francis, I can tell you that yesterday when I crossed live with Peter, he mentioned something very interesting, that there was calm before the storm in the ROC there. But I can tell you right now we are experiencing calm on the inside here at the Results Operations Center. But it's a little bit stormy outside because several pockets of resistance in as far as service delivery protests have been reported in this province. Just before we went on, we got an update that 7 people have been arrested near Taung, where they stormed the IEC offices and 1 voting station and confiscated the materials of the IEC officials there. And as we heard earlier, that Police Commissioner Shubani, General Koza was here talking about the people's right to protest, but they're not supposed to interfere with the work of the IEC officials, and that constitutes a criminal offense. And also in Marinonyani in the Northwest, residents, they have been up in arms since yesterday. Even this morning, there wasn't any calmness reported, because St. he was reporting live there when they were burning tires on the road, saying that they are not taken seriously by government. They have actually been communicating with the mayor to come and address them, and she didn't. But when she went there, they said they wanted an undertaking by her that's written to ensure that every promise that was made regarding the construction of a road there, which is about 57 kilometers, be completed. Because they were even mentioning the figures that 230 million rand was budgeted for that road, and another 100 million rand was paid, but nothing had happened. So they are so furious, and they even stopped the children from going to school, and a vehicle of the IEC was torched. And when we received a video, it was definitely confirmed that the residents were very angry. So there has been some activities of disruption of the special vote throughout the province. And I can tell you right now where we are, the IEC has actually been trying to grapple with the situation on how they're going to address residents who want to protest, and also want to know that given that they have communication with their local government, why is it that they are interfering with the work of the IEC and deterring other voters who want to participate in this election? So we want to talk about the timing of these protests so that we can get some analysis. And I have with me here Professor Andre Dovenachen, and he's here to tell us about the timing of these protests since yesterday, sir.
Colin, yes, it is very interesting that it is more or less in the rural areas. We are talking about Ganyesa, we are talking about Ostrich, Bray, Kraaipan, and now also Taung. And the timing is interesting, and also the support base is linking to the traditional pocket of resistance against the current ANC government, referring to Job Mogoro and his group. So some people will connect it with the ANC itself. And it's clear that we have seen the deployment of police, the army is on standby, so we are entering a bit of Praetorian politics, and also to an extent an election that may be a bit unstable. Hopefully the police and the army will have the sources to deal with this in a proper way, because I have no doubt in my mind that there are political agendas behind this.
Why are people angry now? Where has this anger been all along?
The anger was there all the time. The problem is, or the challenge for them is, at the moment the system is very vulnerable on the eve of an election, and it's the ideal time to use power in a destructive way to have an impact on the system. So it's more about timing than specific anger at a specific point in time.
But this is the time of the end of term for all politicians who have been deployed to government. So if they're protesting now, who's going to listen to them? What if those people don't come back to office?
Well, that is the point. There's a lot of uncertainty. And where there's uncertainty, there's normally conflict. And you can resolve conflict by making use of violence. And I have no doubt that many people are feeling their positions are threatened at the moment as a result of the election, but also as a result of a number of other factors. In a way, we are looking at a regime change in the future here in Northwest. And people are dissatisfied and uncertain with this.
Let's talk about these angry voters, as well as the voters who are saying that they are disgruntled and they're not going to vote. And we juxtapose that with those who don't know whether they should give a national vote to a different party and a provincial vote to another party. And I'll tell you why I'm asking you that.
Well, I have no doubt that we are going to see more split votes during this election, as was the case in the past. The reason for that, people are uncertain. They will make a certain choice on a provincial level and maybe another choice on another level. But this is the positive part. There are also people working with negative energy, and that negative energy is channeled into service delivery protests, also forms of violence and instability, what we have seen in Kraaipan and so on. And during election times, it seems as if the IEC is an important target because there's a lot of publicity involved in this.
Yeah, you know, Francis, something very interesting when one has been listening to political debates here in the Northwest about voters who have mixed feelings, and their sentiments of whether or not to vote has been really a burning issue in the Northwest regarding disgruntlement. Now, when we're talking about split votes, as the professor has already alluded to here, we have some people who say that they originate from the Northwest, but they work in Gauteng. So they don't know how to split their votes because, for example, I have with me two papers here. It's the e-tolls issue. They keep on getting summonses from Sandral because they owe the e-toll, and then also the issue of the billing system at the city of Johannesburg. They keep on sending the wrong bills to them. So they're saying if they were going to vote for one party or the other, they don't know who to choose because during the ANC's reign in Gauteng, for example, this problem was there. And then during the DA's time, there's still unresolved issues of the e-tolls. And coming to the Northwest as well, where it's their hometowns, they are experiencing the very same problem of service delivery, the problem with roads and so forth. So for a confused voter, what What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think you are quite right. The two scenarios is quite different. When you look at Gauteng, we are talking about predominantly an urban environment. When we're talking about Northwest, it's predominantly rural or a semi-urban type of environment. So therefore, people will find it difficult to not split their vote in some way or another. Maybe you can come up with an option that you are in favor of radical land reform, and then you will vote EFF within the context of, let's say, Northwest. But when it comes to Gauteng province, you may decide to give the DA a second chance, or maybe giving the ANC another chance. So you are going in a split vote type of scenario due to different circumstances.
Right, there you have it. Quite insightful analysis on the issue of split votes here in the Northwest. For now, it's back to you, Francis.
Thank you very much, Colin. So the Northwest, possible hotspot. We know the police were watching that province. And yes, already signs of volatility there. So no doubt a lot of police on the ground in that province tomorrow. And those service delivery protests, like the analysts saying, opportunistic perhaps. Certainly the country will be watching and listening if you disrupt IEC processes. All right, let's go to the Northern Cape. Reginald Witboy is there in Kimberley. Reginald, talking about anger, we know that the Khoisan in your province, amongst them, there is ferment, there is anger with the government. Anything happening today?
Well, good afternoon to you, Francis. We are here in Uppington, and I must start by saying I am doing this live crossing from my cell phone, and that is the reason why I don't or are not fortunate to have a guest at this moment. But if I can just give you a glimpse of what is happening here over the past 2 days, IEC officials went around to do home visits for those people who applied for those special votes, and then also I am here at a voting station where people also came in the jibs and jabs to cast their votes because they have applied. But I spoke to Dirk Willemse. He is the regional manager of the IEC here in Uppington. I spoke to him earlier on. He was saying to me that they are not encountering any challenges at this stage. Whether this is going to be the same situation come tomorrow is it's another story to tell. But earlier on, I also went around to the Dr. Harry Suruti Hospital here in Uppington just to visit those people who are registered to cast their votes but are not able to vote tomorrow because they were admitted. I spoke to 2 patients. One was admitted on Sunday and one last night, and they are basically saying that they are not happy about what the IEC is doing because they are not getting the opportunity to exercise their democratic right, calling on the IEC to do something in the near future to visit hospitals and ensure that those who are in hospital to cast their votes, because they can't help that they've been admitted to a hospital because they can't predict the future. And even yesterday I spoke to car guards and also beggars on the streets. Some say they are going to vote, some doesn't have IEDs, some just lost hope. But the mood here itself in Uppington for the elections is very still relaxed. So I will go out in the field tomorrow just around this region and see whether it is still the same situation come tomorrow.
Reginald, give us a quick political landscape in the Northern Cape, because the ANC looks like it's firmly in control of that province. If you look at 2014, more than 64% for the ANC. But we know that the DA has been focusing a lot of its campaigning in the Northern Cape. It's even said it could win there. Just give us a sense of who could be the front runners and why.
Well, as you've correctly mentioned there, the ANC is in full control here in the province itself, but also we can see that the Democratic Alliance is also making or trying to make their mark within the province, they try to woo voters, and people are saying from different parties that, well, we are the best party to vote for. So people, we are seeing ANC people, DA, and even Khoisan people, because the Khoisan leader, Stanley Peterson, he normally called on people to vote for his party, and also making his mark, saying that the province itself and the responsibilities of the Khoisan people need to get divine intervention for them to be recognized. So it will be surprising to see whether the ANC will gain support or whether it will go below, and also whether the DA will make inroads, and also the good party of Patricia de Lille.
All right, thank you very much. That was Witboy in the Northern Cape. Also one to watch in terms of the political struggle. The opposition convinced it will gain inroads. But if you look at the latest stats for recent elections, the ANC is still firmly in control of that province. All right, we're coming to you live from Pretoria, from the Results Operations Centre, and also from Johannesburg. It's back to my colleague there, Peter Ndoro. Peter, over to you.
Every year, more and more people all around the country are saving money on their car insurance. Let's meet some of them. Tell me how you feel about being in one of these insurance ads that you've seen on TV.
It's exciting. The husband is a bit jealous.
When you did make that call, what was the experience like?
They listened to you and they helped you save.
How much did you end up saving?
Almost 500 Rand a month. With the savings, we can do more things as a family. Switch and save.
Yes! When?
Now.
Right now?
Yes.
Tell them.
It's your time, it's your time, it's your time, it's your time.
If you think it's a hassle getting a quote, put us to the test. Call or SMS now for a quick quote and make 2019 your time to save. SMS SAVE to 34473. So how did you hear about insurance?
So it was a TV ad. Normal day-to-day people hearing their testimonials and hearing how much insurance saved them. You want to put up your hand and say, that's me. I want to save money. Often you see these ads and you think, okay, well, they've been told what to say, but it's not. And you ask the question.
You're not a professional actor?
No.
How much did you end up saving?
300 Rand. Cha-cha.
If you've been with the same insurer for years and haven't recently put insurance to the test, call or SMS now and make 2019 your time to save. SMS SAVE to 34473. So how did your path cross the insurance?
My nephew referred me because he had just switched and saved.
Yeah. How much did you save?
Over 900 Rand.
What are you doing with your saving every month?
I want to go to the Caribbean islands. I want to go and get my groove back.
You need to give your nephew a shout out. Give him a shout out, Bonita.
Dale, you are awesome.
And now, she and Mr. Quipman are going to get their groove back. They've all saved. Why shouldn't you? SMS SAVE to 34473 and make 2019 your time to save.
So what happened is I made the phone call and I asked Kolisa to just call me back. He explained everything to me, a meaningful conversation.
How much did you actually end up saving?
Almost 750 rands. That's how I switched and saved. But I'm glad our paths crossed.
We could make an insurance connection here. Have you and Kolisa gone out on a date or something?
No, it was just insurance.
Oh, is it your time?
Yeah, it's my time.
Just think what you could do with the money you save. SMS SAVE to 34473. 2019, it's your time to save.
Made a call, so what did I have to lose, right? I had the nicest conversation with Naz. He ended up saving me over 1,000 Rand.
What?
Yeah.
How long were you then with your previous insurer?
Around 2009.
Nearly a decade.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money there
Yep.
that you could have saved, right? Let's focus on the future. If you were to give somebody advice about starting off the new year.
Make 2019 yours. Have a 2019 year.
SMS SAVE to 34473 and make 2019 your time to save.
Hashtag SA Decides 2019. Welcome back. You're watching SA Today, and we're taking a look at the issues around the country, and one of our lead stories today was that about service delivery issues and the burning of a community hall and a clinic in Viljoenskroon in Bloemfontein. I want to take you to our screen here and get a sense of who's there and what might be some of the issues there. Well, you'll find Viljoenskroon is in the Free State, and particularly in a municipality called Motaka. Let's go in there and get a sense of who's there, who controls that ward. Let's have a look. It's going to open. In fact, that's where Viljoenskroon is anyway, and it's controlled by the ANC, 20 of the 23 seats. And if we take a look inside there and who's there, to get a sense of who is upset and why they're upset, this is the demographics of the people there. They're mainly farm workers, and as you can see, the median age is 39, so fairly mature, unlike most of the urban centres. Most of the people between 30 and 60 years old. But let's go straight to the households. In fact, let's go to service delivery, because that's the big issue, isn't it, there in that part of the world. Look at this, 11.2% of the people are getting water from regional or local service providers, and 85% are dependent on borehole water. So they've had to pretty much fix things for themselves. And 64% of people have flush toilet facilities available to them, which is not a great percentage if you think about everybody should have the ability to have access to that. But let's take a look at the economics of the area, because that might tell us a little bit more about the people in Viljoenskroon. 17% of those people have a job, 17% employment. So this is not a great statistic as well. Annual income, average annual income, only 30,000 Rand. Again, it is mostly a farming area, so perhaps that is quite understandable as well. And as you can see here, 60% in the formal sector, which will be, chances are, in the farming arena. Education, again, another indicator of the kind of person that we're dealing with here. Only 18.2% of the people in the area have completed grade 9 or higher, and only 8% completed matric or higher. So it's not highly educated, mature-ish in terms of population, and some serious service delivery issues there. And as we heard earlier from our reports, a lot of people there saying they're either not going to vote or they're very upset with the ruling party there, which is the African National Congress, for not delivering their results. All right, so that's a look at the people that are inside Viljoenskroon. We'll continue to take a look at other areas, particularly where these service delivery issues are playing out. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more for you on SA Today as we continue going around the country.
SABC News is producing more than 150 election-related programs ahead of the May 8th election. If you think our content is not in line with our editorial policy, direct your complaints in writing to complaints@sabc.co.za. Complaints on election-related broadcast content should also be lodged with ICASA's Complaints and Compliance Committee by sending an email to bmashihu@icasa.org.za or call 012-568-3233.
Political parties have delivered their manifestos, and now it's time for you to make sense of it all. From campaigning to declarations.
Let's speak to the people on the ground.
We are sick of crime.
Interesting comments coming from the ground there.
SABC News delivers unrivaled, unrestrained coverage, giving you the platform to express your views.
I want more job opportunities.
SABC News will be live from all corners of the country. You will get expert analysis in all languages, party reactions, and the true story behind the numbers.
It's all about the numbers.
Across 4 TV stations, 19 radio stations, and online platforms. SA Decides 2019. SABC News. Independent, impartial.
In a UN report, scientists say climate change is getting worse.
1/3 of our food sources for the population come out of the ocean.
We spoke to people who have been directly affected.
We have lost a lot of cattle. Gemsbokvlakte, Tosca gebied and Jakkalskop. Everywhere you will see there's animals dying.
I've lost 2 of my cattle this January.
Africa's demand for clean drinking water is rising.
Drinking water is a top priority.
The next day when the water comes back, it's dirty.
I have implemented a level 5 water restriction, effective immediately.
Environmentalists seek solutions to preserve the planet.
This is Cape Kirpa, which is also one of the endemic species that is only found within the Western Cape, so it occurs nowhere else in the world except in our water system. (1600) Central Africa time. Hello and welcome. You're watching the SABC News Channel, independent and impartial. Thanks for joining us. I'm Peter Ndoro here in Johannesburg.
And I'm Frances Hurd, coming to you live from the Results Operations Centre in Tshwane in Pretoria. We'll join you shortly. Lots of analysis, predictions. We don't know if we all know what's going to happen tomorrow, but it's fun to look ahead, coming to you shortly.
Thanks very much indeed, Francis. We'll be crossing back to Francis a little bit later on, but first let's catch you up with our top stories this hour.
Let us all go and vote for a better tomorrow. Let us vote for a brighter future. Let us go to the polls on the 8th of May and together determine our country's future.
A message from the President on the eve of the country's elections. Delays and protests on day 2 of special votes. More police are expected to be deployed in Viljoenskroon in the Free State after a clinic and a hall were torched overnight. Independent Electoral Commission officials say that everything is on track for tomorrow's vote on 26 million South Africans are expected to make their mark. And the Department of Home Affairs' offices around the country will be open until 9 o'clock tomorrow to accommodate the thousands of people who will still need to collect their ID books. Right, let's get straight into our elections news. President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged all South Africans to exercise their democratic right and vote in tomorrow's elections. President Ramaphosa says that many people sacrificed everything that they had during the apartheid era to secure the right of all South Africans to vote. Polling stations will open nationwide at 7 in the morning tomorrow and will close at 9. The President says that people must make use of this opportunity.
Fellow South Africans, it is 25 years since we all won the right to vote, when South Africans of all races, from different backgrounds, in every part of the country cast their ballots in our first democratic election. With our votes, we ushered in a new era of peace, democracy and unity that has endured and flourished over the past 25 years. On Wednesday, the 8th of May, all South Africans will once again have an opportunity to decide their own destiny. The day has been declared a public holiday so as to allow all registered voters to go and vote for the party of their choice in national and provincial elections. In doing so, Together we will be exercising the right that was won through decades of struggle and sacrifice. We will also be exercising a responsibility that we have to future generations to build a country that is at peace, that is united, democratic, fair and prosperous. I'm therefore calling on all South Africans to go out and vote on Wednesday, the 8th of May. Voting stations will open at 7 a.m. and close at night at 9 p.m. Please remember to take your green ID book or your smart card ID or a valid temporary ID certificate to the voting station. Remember to vote twice, once for national government and the other for provincial government. We wish all parties well in this election and ask every candidate and every party agent to help ensure a free, fair and peaceful election. Let us all go and vote for a better tomorrow. Let us vote for a brighter future. Let us go to the polls on the 8th of May and together determine our country's future. I thank you.
The Independent Electoral Commission, the IEC, says that it's anticipating a smooth start to tomorrow's general elections. This despite a handful of incidents which have raised some concerns. Briefing the media this afternoon, Chief Electoral Officer Saima Mabulo said that an electoral officer has been suspended for violating the electoral code. In a video that went viral on social media, a party agent could be seen assisting to place special ballot papers into a ballot box. The IEC has condemned this.
One apparent crime-related incident yesterday, a group of knife-wielding men confronted a group of election officials conducting home visits in Giyani and confiscated 93 unused provincial ballot papers, which they then destroyed. Fortunately, no one was injured, and the cast ballots, 7 of them, were secured and not affected. The SAPS were quick to respond, and 2 suspects have been arrested and are now in police custody. 2 vehicle accidents involving staff were reported over the past 2 days, but fortunately only minor injuries were sustained. The Electoral Commission is investigating reports of instances of the double envelope system not being used in certain parts of the country yesterday, as well as some ballots, sporadic incidents of some ballots that were not stamped at the back. The stamping of ballot papers immediately prior to them being issued to voters is an important security measure. These incidents were discussed in the National Party Liaison Committee this morning, which has made some recommendations to the Commission, including that the Commission accept the legitimacy of these ballots if verified. The Commission will ultimately make a decision on whether these ballots are included in the count or not. Additional reminders of the importance of stamping ballot papers and of the double envelope system were sent to presiding officers and deputy presiding officers today. The Electoral Commission has removed a deputy presiding officer from a voting station in Binoni, Ekurhuleni, following an investigation into a video showing a party agent assisting with the transfer of special votes from the special votes back into a ballot box at the voting station. Party agents are not permitted to handle any election material and may also observe and raise objections if circumstances necessitating that arise.
In the Free State, Viljoenskroon residents say that whilst they condemn the burning of infrastructure, they still feel that their protest is legitimate. The community was brought to a standstill this morning when a clinic and a hall were torched during a service delivery protest.
Burning infrastructure is wrong, but we are being disrespected. They don't take us seriously.
Our councillor lives in town. He doesn't know how we live. We live in filth. He does nothing because he knows nothing about us.
Meanwhile, international observers who are in the country have commended South Africa on how parties and citizens have conducted themselves during the campaigning period. The observers have been accredited to oversee the national elections on Wednesday.
These election observers come from different countries. They are here to be the eyes and the ears of the international community.
Normally, when you are some 3 days before elections in Zimbabwe, the situation is so tense. It's so tense. When I was told we were going for a rally somewhere in Soweto, I said, my God, are we going to be safe? Because our understanding back home is that Soweto is one of the areas that is a violent-prone area. So I thought maybe I was going to witness what we normally do in Zimbabwe. Some few days before the elections, we are always at each other's throat. There is that no freedom of association. People are not allowed to really go freely, do their campaign. But what I witnessed here, I said, is this Africa? Is this South Africa that I know? Or I'm in Europe. It was so free. You could see somebody putting on a DA t-shirt, somebody putting on a ANC t-shirt, the EFF t-shirt, going around their business without even intimidating to each other.
Myanmar is also represented, and this observer believes there is something her country can learn from South Africa.
We are a very young democracy country, and we are going to have the third general election in 2020. So we have everything to learn from South Africa, and the way that the parties campaign, the way the election commission organize the election, and then the way they invite the international election observer and all that. All these we can learn from South Africa.
India is also currently awaiting election results.
Another part is the role that social media, fake news, and really misappropriation of the media space, the impact that has on communities and people. Certainly in South Asia, you've seen very cynical ways of manipulating social media, and that has had very unfortunate effects, violence, etc.
During the 2017 elections in Kenya, the country was on the brink of conflict. The African Union mission was led by former President of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, came under fire from the country's opposition. But today, they are singing a different tune.
There were more experiences we have not had. But right now, we have had the experience, and hence that's the way forward, and that's the way we have maintained our country peacefully. Personally, I would give an apology because we ought to have taken that realization at the time of his approach. There would have been no more bloodshed. But because we ignored it and we thought we were on the right track, we went astray.
The observers will be deployed to different polling stations during voting. SADC has indicated that it will issue a preliminary report by Friday. Sophie Mkwen, SABC News, Johannesburg.
All right, that's a first look at some of our election stories that we're following for you right here on SA Today. And don't forget that we are also at the Results Operations Centre in Tshwane, and sitting there is Francis.
Thank you very much, Peter. So let's get some analysis, look at some of the expectations ahead of tomorrow when the bulk of South Africans will go to the polls. I'm joined in studio by Dr. Randeni Ranilala. Welcome, Doctor. I'd love to go back. So 2016 in South Africa was seen as a bit of a watershed because that was local government elections. So not national, not provincial like we're doing tomorrow. But suddenly we saw municipalities landing themselves in coalition governments. No outright winner in Tshwane, Joburg, Nelson Mandela Bay. Suddenly things change. Do you think we could see coalitions forming this time at a provincial, maybe not a national level, but moving up to a provincial level?
Yes. You see, we must understand that the local government elections, at the time when it took place in 2016, there was a lot of discontent, and many citizens were unhappy with the delivery rate under the leadership of the ANC ruling party. Now, on that basis, that triggered coalitions between opposition parties, because the idea was we have to remove the ANC because the ANC is not delivering. Remember, on the national front, there was a Zuma factor, which people were already unhappy to say, look, Zuma must go, he's not helping the country with anything. And that, of course, triggered the coalition. Now, with these current elections, there are two factors that we need to consider. The first factor is that you have Ramaphosa, who is singing a sort of a different renewal song, representing the ANC. And he seems to be getting a lot of reception nationally. But people in the local level and in the provincial level, they still have concerns with the leadership of the ruling party in those areas. And even in some of those coalitions, some of them did not work. So you will find that some of the smaller parties might want to change affiliations in terms of forming coalitions. They might want to move from this other partner to another partner. So that you are going to find a lot in the provincial level.
And certainly the politicians would prefer an outright win. It is easier. We've seen some of those coalitions being quite unstable, in fact.
Yes.
So you're talking about disillusioned voters. There was a lot of analysis then that those disillusioned voters, many loyal to the ANC, wouldn't vote for another party but would stay away. Yes. The question now being asked is Cyril Ramaphosa, is the president, is his talk of a new dawn strong enough to bring those ANC voters back?
Look, I think the ANC never lost those voters. The only thing is that they decided to stay away and they did not vote. Now, those voters...
You mean the ANC didn't lose them?
The ANC did not lose them.
Yeah.
Those voters remain the ANC members and the supporters of the ANC, but they decided deliberately that they are not going to vote for Jacob Zuma. And on that basis, they stayed away from the elections. Now, what the Cyril factor does is that it is able to bring them back to vote. So therefore, the voter turnout in favor of the ANC in that regard will increase in terms of its own internal constituency. But now, there is one area that the ANC is struggling to push the frontiers. That is on the youth level, because I don't really think the ANC has done enough to be able to attract a lot of youth voters. So you are still going to find a lot of youth going for the EFF, because the EFF has made a lot of strides to get access to tertiary universities. If you look at universities, for example, the EFF is practically a majority party in most of the SRCs. Now, what happened to the ANC, you think there, is practically dead.
Yeah.
Now, this is one area that...
However, will it help the ANC that, in fact, a lot of young people have not even bothered to register there?
That is the issue. That, in fact, my view is that the ANC hasn't managed to attract the new voters that much. Yes, there will be a few here and there, but the percentage won't be substantial to make a huge difference in terms of the ANC making a dent on the youth side. And I think it's if one was to advise the ANC, you'll advise the ANC that in the next elections, they really need to make some focus on the youth.
Some people are seeing this as a referendum on Cyril Ramaphosa's leadership. Do you see it like that?
I don't really think so, because remember, Cyril Ramaphosa has been part of the Zuma government, and on that basis alone, it can be a referendum. This is a party-based election, and it's a national election, and therefore Cyril has been part of the ANC, and therefore it can be a referendum for him.
However, if he's stronger in his party, maybe he's got more of a stronger hand for reform. What do you think voters, how are they looking at this in terms of party with its problems versus leadership?
Look, Cyril Ramaphosa, in no doubt, has portrayed some good leadership qualities. And that, of course, will attract a little bit of support for the ANC in the provinces. But the issue is, he's still heading the ANC. And what is the general perception towards the ANC? Because he's not running his own different political party. He is running the ANC as a political party. The issue is whether he has been able to transcend from the perception that the voters have towards the ANC. And I don't really think so, because remember, you are going into these elections at the same time when you have your state capture commissions and so on and so on. And who is at the center there? Most of the officials, most of the politicians that were part of the ruling party. And that, in fact, does a huge negative dent for the ANC, unfortunately.
All right, thank you for your analysis. We'll see if this all makes sense after tomorrow. Thank you so much for giving us your views. Dr. Randeni Ranilala, political analyst there, and just looking at some of the predictions around coalition governments that we now see at a municipal level. Could that translate into a provincial level? Certainly, Gauteng would be one to watch for that. All right, we're moving on to Naria Hlakatso. Naria, tell us where you are, what's happening in your area.
Good afternoon to you. Right now I am here in Kuruman, in specifically Madibeng village. Of course, special voting did occur here earlier on, and we've seen that most now of the residents have dispersed as a result. But I think the important thing about this area right now was for us to come check the status of the residents in terms of will they be participating in tomorrow's vote, because as early as last week, the residents were threatening somehow that they might decide to disrupt. And what was the crux of all of that? Of course, they were saying that they are unhappy with the state of roads here. If you remember, if I can take you back to 2014, this is the same area where we saw residents taking to the streets, even shutting down schools for at least a year until it got national government attention. And we saw some promises, of course, where residents here were promised that they will have roads, amongst other things. But fast forward to 5 years later, they still don't have roads. And most of them, of course, are angry about that fact and unhappy about it. But earlier on, we did speak to them and we did catch up with them in terms of their state of readiness, in terms of tomorrow, and whether some of them did participate in the vote. But it seems like they are saying that they will not give up now, and they want to hold whichever government that comes into power accountable. But let's just speak to some of the residents right now to find out from them. Mama, you were one of the people that were angry about Stadia Ditsela Salona Mona. How are you feeling that 5 years later, since the protest Salona, you still don't have roads?
Good afternoon, viewers and everybody here. Mommy, we still have angry since we voted this government. Re rata tota mme ga re direle sentle mme ga se yone ke batho ba ba bereka mo go yone. Since re kopile tsela ka 2012, ra e kopa ka 2014 till now. I grew up in this village. I'm a woman. I gave birth. Ke na le bana. Still now we struggle with the turnout.
And of course, Mama, but I'm guessing Kausani, it's a big day. The 18th of May, we know that South Africans will be heading to the polls, all of them, to choose a party that they think will represent them or give them their promises. How do you feel about tomorrow? Will you be taking to the polls? Are you disheartened about this road? Or
tomorrow we feel good. Gore re ya go votela mmusho wa rona o re phela mo gona. Bothata jwa rona ke gore ga re itumelele se puso ya rona e sa se re direleng. re kanne re le motse wa Madibe as a whole, as a Ward 3, gore re tla go vota go ntla ga tshololle ya madi, we peacefully we go to vote.
So those are just some of the views here from the residents on the ground saying that they did not disrupt any special votes, and of course tomorrow they will be waking up again to go put that mark on the ballot because they have faith in government and they're hoping that their roads will be sorted soon. Let me cross back to you.
Thank you very much, Naria Lakatso in Kuruman. Let's take you straight to Amahlatini in the Eastern Cape. That's where we find Iviwe Poti. Iviwe, so some disruptions in your area as well. Tell us what's happening.
We are in the Amahlati area now, where specifically now we're in Stutterham. But when you look at the region as a whole, Amatole, there was a bit of disturbance yesterday in the Ginsberg area, where we saw community members come out to protest, burning tires, etc. But saying that, you know, it wasn't their intention to disturb or disrupt any of the special votes. People were allowed to go through and vote at the various voting stations. They also did allow the IEC members to come into that Ginsberg area, do their home visits and the job that they were supposed to be doing in terms of the special votes. But they did want to, however, highlight the issues that they had as a community in terms of a lack of service delivery, etc. Yesterday we were in that area. This morning there was a cleanup of the area as well in terms of preparation for tomorrow's votes. But right now where we are is the Amahlati municipality, specifically in Stutterham. You'll remember that towards the end of last year there were very violent protests in this area. Actually, let me move out of shot and ask cameraman Agcobile Vena to show you what I'm talking about. The protests towards the end of November last year, these are some of the results of disgruntled community members in this area that then decided to torch about 4 municipal buildings in this municipality, saying that, you know, this was their way of voicing their unhappiness with the municipality in terms of service delivery, development within the area. But we have been in the area. Of the 96 voting stations, from what we have gathered as the SABC throughout Amahlati, is that all of them will be operational tomorrow, and there's about 50,000 registered voters that will take to the polls here tomorrow. We are going to be on our way into the township just to check on community members. We know that there was a community meeting held earlier on just to ensure that everyone is still on the right track in terms of that they have decided now to vote, as opposed to, you'll remember that this is one of the areas that had said they will not be voting. But now a change of heart in terms of, you know, if we want governance, if we want change, or if we want to hold anyone accountable, we have to use our vote.
All right, thank you, Iviwe Poti. Just a quick, give us a quick lay of the land in terms of the politics of the Eastern Cape. It's dominated by the ANC, isn't it?
Well, when you look at, you know, in terms of an overall perspective, one could say that it's dominated by the ANC. But if you look at the 2 metros that we have here in the Eastern Cape, that being your Buffalo City Metro and as well as Nelson Mandela Metro, we will know that after the local government elections that we had the Democratic Alliance leading there in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. Therefore, you know, kind of making it a bit unstable in terms of which political party is actually in charge when you look at the metros. But we do know that in the Buffalo City Metro, the ANC then they do enjoy leadership in this area. We do know that in terms of opposition parties, the EFF has been able to gain a large number of numbers. I mean, for a small party over the past few years. Also, when we look at the Mthatha region as well, your UDM and ATM, it looks like there are people that are looking in that direction. We do know that the UDM gets most of their numbers from the Eastern Cape as well. So if you look in terms of at a provincial level, one could actually foresee that there might be a coalition. But when we look in terms of the last election that we had, and we also look at the local government elections, the ANC has managed to actually gain more numbers. I'm sure as of now they're also hoping after these elections in terms of provincially they gain more numbers. But otherwise, provincially here in the Eastern Cape, the ANC definitely enjoys leadership.
All right, but those local government elections are certainly encouraging to the opposition. Thank you for that outline from the Eastern Cape, Iviwe Poti. And we're coming to you live from Tshwane and also from our studios in Johannesburg. That's where we find my colleague, Peter Ndoro.
Francis, thanks very much indeed. Yeah, we continue crossing across the country and from Tshwane and the Eastern Cape. Well, let me take you now to the, where are we going? Northwest Province, of course, and our colleague who normally is in studio with us Monday to Fridays doing the business news. And we're in his home province now. We go to the Northwest Province and we say a very good afternoon to you, Colin. Thanks very much for joining us. What's it like being at home? Is there a sense of excitement ahead of tomorrow?
Okay, please give me the... I can't hear.
Hello, Colin. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello, Colin. All right, okay, we're going to connect with Colin Limpopo in a couple of seconds there. As I said, this is his home province, so he knows the area quite well. And what we'd like to do is get a sense of what's been happening day 2 of the special voting that's been taking place around the country. 700,000 people on that voters list. And then tomorrow, of course, is the big day. But let's see if we can go back to the Northwest Province right now and say hello once again to Colin Limpopo. Thanks very much for joining us. I hope you can hear me. As I was saying a bit earlier on, what's it like being home, and is there a lot of excitement ahead of tomorrow?
Well, momentum is picking up pace, Peter. Good afternoon. And we have realized that there's been so much excitement, except that there has been some pockets of resistance, as I mentioned earlier, that some areas were experiencing quite a stormy reaction of members of the community who are not really happy with service delivery. For example, in Kraipan, community members there were up in arms complaining about service delivery. We've had an IEC vehicle being torched, as well as in Taung also, where 7 members of the community have been arrested, and we hear that they actually were interfering with the work of the IEC. And also in Madinonyane, we heard earlier there was a service delivery protest that started yesterday, where even children were stopped from going to school as they were up in arms, saying that they want to speak to the mayor, who has to make an undertaking about the latest project, which is a road that is about 57 kilometers, and there was about 230 million rand that was allocated, and another 100 million that was allocated and budgeted for, and nothing has happened regarding that. So they were fighting and wanting that to be answered for before the election. So they are saying that they are not going to vote, and they were stopping other members of the community from voting. But what I can tell you is that fortunately we have the IEC provincial electoral officer, who is Dr. Tumelontle Tiba, who's going to tell us about these developments. Dr. Tiba, thank you very much for making time to speak to us. Would you say that this election phase, just at the beginning, has given you a baptism of fire?
Not really, because I've been in this business for more than a decade now. And I am pleased in a sense because out of our 1,733 stations, yesterday only 4 of them were disrupted. As much as the incident in Madinonyane was grave, in that 1 car belonging to our official was burnt, completely destroyed, and another was stoned and also almost completely destroyed. And both those officers were harmed. We are not happy, but that makes up for 0.12% of our stations that were disrupted. The incident that happened last week, where one of our voting stations in Kraipan was torched, we have made an alternative plan for that. We erected a tent across from the school, and yesterday and today the special voting process went smoothly.
Well, what do you make out of these service delivery protests, which are very violent, and also now they are turning their frustrations on the IEC officials?
Unfortunately, it is just the way that it is, that the IEC has to bear the brunt of the anger of some community members. But we continue to encourage our voters to come to stations tomorrow to make sure that we strengthen electoral democracy in this province, and that we continue to protect the country that we love by sustaining our democracy. So in as much as we have those violent incidents of protests, which, as I said, resulted in 2 of our officials being badly harmed, we still believe that the people of the Northwest love and respect their country sufficiently to make sure that tomorrow's event is a successful one.
Right, let's get some political analysis here. Dr. Ushupeng Maseng from the Northwest Province, rather University. Tell us about what you make out of the timing of these protests.
No, it's actually related to social deprivation, where people's expectations from political parties are not actually in line with the actual reality that political parties throughout elections, they would continue to promise people certain things and they fail to deliver. So eventually this ends up in frustration and then it ends up in protests as we experience now. And the unfortunate thing is that our people are not actually politically educated in order to separate the roles of Chapter 9 institutions as well as that of the executive, because these frustrations are actually should be directed to the executive but not the IEC. The unfortunate thing is that this is pure lack of political education on the part of various communities.
Right, there you have it. I've been speaking to Dr. Ushupeng Maseng, who is a political analyst at the Northwest University, as well as the provincial electoral head here at the IEC, who is Dr. Tumelontle Tiba. And of course, our reporters have been posted to the 4 cardinal points of the province, who will give us consolidated synopsis of reports as the day progresses. For now, it's back to the studio.
Thanks very, very much indeed. That's Colin Limawani, who's reporting there from the Northwest Province. Another one of those provinces that have been highly contested in recent times, and we'll see how much that will play out in the polls on Wednesday. All right, so let's go from the Northwest to Polokwane and Limpopo to be exact, and we'll find there our reporter Beatrice Magwale. Beatrice, thanks for joining us. Tell us, what's the situation in Polokwane today? Second day of special votes, but I suppose people are already starting to think about tomorrow.
Well, good afternoon to you, Peter, as well as the viewers at home. I'm here at the IEC Center rather in Polokwane, and as you can see behind me, IEC officials are on their day-to-day duties to ensure that they prepare for the day, and we can see also, party agents are also visible here. Earlier today, we had a media briefing, with the provincial electoral officer, Nkaro Matete, just to give us an update as to what has happened of yesterday and also to today in terms of special votes and also their readiness for the main day, which is tomorrow. And we know that numerous incidents have happened here in Limpopo. And they stated that out of the voting stations that have received applications for special vote, 8 of them could not open, 4 in Guyana, where also 4 of them, in those 4 of them, the reasons is that community members are protesting for service delivery. And there was an incident where IEC officials were busy executing special votes and they were interrupted by public members who damaged about 93 unused ballot papers and also took off with some of the materials there. And also right now I'm going to speak to Nkaro Matete, who is the provincial electoral officer, just to give us an update as to what is happening in terms of developments with regard to those ballot boxes that were damaged and stolen, and also just for her to give us an update as to how is Limpopo ready for tomorrow's day. Thank you so much for speaking to us. The incident that has transpired in Guyana where ballot boxes were stolen, what are the latest development in terms of that? Police investigating, are there any arrests as yet?
Indeed, police moved swiftly last night and the 2 suspects have been arrested. I must say those are unused ballot papers. They were destroyed with knives and whatever items that these people had, plus our envelopes. So they have been arrested and we're quite excited that they are arrested because they need to account for all these deeds. If you do not want to participate in elections, stay at home. Do not harass or intimidate IEC officials and don't stop them from executing their functions. This is the message we are giving to all people that really want to disrupt this democratic process.
In some of the incidents where officials, they didn't even report for duty because they're concerned for their safety, and in some areas where they didn't, community members are threatening them. For tomorrow, what is the plan to ensure that their safety is a first priority?
Indeed, we do not want any officials to be injured or their property damaged. So in such cases, we take precautionary measures. We share our plans with the police so that the necessary security arrangements are made for our officials. In some cases, we'll move our officials around so that if I'm from this village and there is a threat on my property, then I'll go and work in another village, and people from that village would come and work in my own village. This is just to ensure that there is peace after elections when the IEC is gone. This person is going to remain in the village. And indeed, we would like to have peace. We do not want anybody to lose their lives because of IEC work.
You know, speaking about readiness, we know that about 8 voting stations were not opened today, and tomorrow it is the main day. What is it that you're going to do to ensure that people within those stations that were not open are able to cast their ballots?
Indeed, we tried very hard. This 8 voting station was the incident of yesterday. At least in Guyana, as an example, we still have problems with Ward 23. Because in that area, they are now sending SMSs to our officials. Fortunately, they are using cell phones. They don't realize that a cell phone is traceable. So once we know who's the owner of that cell phone, that person is intimidating an IEC official. So that person will open the case with the police so that that person gets arrested, because you cannot actually do that. They can't stop democratic processes. So elections are going to happen tomorrow. All the 3,157 voting stations will open at 7 o'clock tomorrow. Indeed, and I want to emphasize that we are sharing our plans with the police, and with their support, all the stations would actually open at 7 o'clock. In other areas where we had problems, at least voting took place today. It's only in Guyana, particularly Ward 23 and some parts of Ward 24, where we still have problems.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
And that was the Provincial Electoral Officer, Nkaro Matete. Just give us an update as to what will happen tomorrow, as we know that in this province, you've seen numerous incidents that, preventing people, from participating and voting and casting their ballots. As we know that, eyes will certainly be on Limpopo with Vuwani, which is labeled as a hotspot. As we know that residents in that area have been protesting since 2015, against them being under the newly established municipality, Collins Chabane. We'll certainly see what will happen there tomorrow. And she indicated in terms of the cases that have happened in the Guyana area that they will make sure that officials are safe and that people are able to vote. And that's all from me here in Polokwane. It's back to you in studio, Peter.
Beatrice, thanks very much indeed. That's our reporter, Beatrice Mahwale, who's in Limpopo, reporting on the situation on the ground there, of course, hinting to the various hotspots around the country that the police have said that they will deploy extra security to make sure that citizens can vote safely wherever they want to vote. And that was the word from the National Police Commissioner, Ketla Sutore. Over 50,000 police officers will be deployed around the country to make sure that you are safe during the voting day tomorrow. All right, let's go back to the Rock in Pretoria. And Francis, where are you going now?
So talking about hotspots, Peter, we're about to go to KwaZulu-Natal, which of course that whole province are seen as a potentially volatile area. There have of course been political killings in KwaZulu-Natal, so police deployed there, and also this is a province struggling in the aftermath of those crippling floods, and the IEC saying it's done the best it can, but we may see tents in some areas. We've also seen service delivery protests there. Before we go to Ayanda, let me just show you the political lay of the land in KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, the former President Jacob Zuma was very popular in KwaZulu-Natal. In 2014, 65% or so voting for the ANC. But look at what happened in 2016. These are the local government elections. We can extrapolate on a provincial level, and the ANC dropped from about 65% to 57.5% or thereabouts. So the question is, how will the ANC do now? Does it retain the support of KwaZulu-Natal, or will there be some punishment for the party ousting former President Jacob Zuma? And then you can see an interesting race for second. In 2016, the IFP came second, the DA not far behind, but in 2014, that was actually swapped. The last national and provincial elections, the DA was in the lead. So an interesting race for second. With that, let's take you to KwaZulu-Natal, to Ayanda Mhlongo. She's live for us in Durban. Ayanda, what's the situation today?
Very good afternoon to you, Francis, and good afternoon to our viewers at home. It's certainly, Francis, speaking about the political parties and how we expect them to fare in this province. It's going to be rather interesting to watch, because this time around we've got a record 31 parties that are contesting these elections. So come tomorrow, when the people of KwaZulu-Natal, the people of South Africa, cast their ballots, we'll be closely watching the results, and it's expected that there could be some surprises in from the province of KwaZulu-Natal, but we'll speak about that more in depth tomorrow when we start looking as those votes come through. But just to speak to today, of course, the second day of the special votes, and we're about an hour or so until 5 p.m., which is the closing time. A good report coming from the IEC today, Francis, saying that despite the challenges that they experienced yesterday, as we know, we were reporting on the demonstrations that led to the delay in the start of the special votes yesterday. There was some concern from the IEC that they might not be able to get to the 70,000, more than 70,000 people who had made those applications for the special votes, rather. But we can say that around midday today, the IEC saying that they'd managed, of the over 100,000 applications that had been made, 54,000 people had already cast their votes, and they were quite confident that they were going to be able to reach mostly those that had applied for the home visits. The numbers of those who were going to visit the polling stations are less than they had expected, but of course they still have tomorrow, so whoever was unable to cast their votes today will still be able to get an opportunity tomorrow. I heard across the country my colleagues speaking about security, and as you said, Francis, here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, it's one of the 2 provinces that have been identified as hotspots, and a large police deployment has been placed here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. In fact, earlier on this morning, over 1,700 police officers were left the city of Durban to be deployed to areas across the province. I can tell you, Francis, that around midday there were about 9 areas where sporadic incidents were being reported. A few demonstrations here and there, but the IEC saying it did not disrupt the voting process. But of course, the security agencies are very much concerned, government leaders here in KwaZulu-Natal very much concerned with the current situation. So they've been working around the clock to try and stabilize those areas. There was a shooting up in the Midlands in KwaZulu-Natal. Additional police reinforcements have been placed there. They've also had issues of behavior of the presiding officers, and we understand that they've already had to remove one presiding officer from one of the stations because that presiding officer abandoned their post, so to speak, and there were reports there, so they've already had to let go of one of the presiding officers. So the IEC looking carefully at its staff as well, ensuring that they do what they have been asked and they act within the law as well. As you know, with a province as volatile as KwaZulu-Natal and highly contested, all eyes will also be on the performance of the IEC in this province. We also know, Francis, that the South African National Defence Force has been roped in to assist in areas where access was cut off by the floods. The SNDF was also going to be available, or on standby rather, to assist in areas where it does become more volatile. That is coming from the police, but an update from them is that they are confident they have all the necessary deployments in place. Still very, very much concerned, of course. There are about 9 9 areas. Here in eThekwini, where we are, is one of them. Ulundi up in the northern part of...
All right, Ayanda Mhlongo, we'll leave it there, but she's keeping a close watch on KwaZulu-Natal for us. We take a short break and we'll be back with more on SA Today.
Every year, more and more people all around the country are saving money on their car insurance. Let's meet some of them. So this lady from Outsurance calls you.
Yes, yeah? Friendly, vibrant, energetic, and she made that sale within 3 seconds. No, 3 sentences.
3 seconds is even better than 3 sentences.
She was good. Ended up saving almost 300 Rand per month.
How would you summarize your overall experience with Outsurance? 3 words.
Fresh, vibrant, and lekker.
If you think it's a hassle getting a quote, put us to the test. Call or SMS now for a quick quote and make 2019 your time to save. SMS SAVE to 34473. This car of yours is only that smell.
Yes.
Is it a new one?
It's new, my dear. First one.
So how long were you with your previous insurer?
For a month.
30
I only
days.
paid 1 premium. It was too much. I gave them a call.
Outsurance?
Yes. All my questions were answered. Even some of the things, because I'm a new driver.
Yeah.
I was not aware of some things. They made a quote for me. I saved about 500 Rand. 2019. How?
Yes. If you've been with the same insurer for years and haven't recently put Outsurance to the test, call or SMS now and make 2019 your time to save. SMS SAVE to 34473.
My previous insurance phoned and said they're going to put my premium up again. And I just thought, you know, really, I can't do this. I sent the SMS, immediately he phoned me. And he was really so sweet. He was so friendly. I couldn't believe it.
How much did you end up saving?
It was about 419 Rand. It's never too late. You must just do it. It's really, really worth it. It's going to change your life. It's changed my life.
Have you told anybody else about it?
Yes, I have.
Yeah?
I tell everybody. Wherever I go, I tell them.
They've all saved. Why shouldn't you? SMS SAVE to 34473 and make 2019 your time to save. So how did your path cross with Outsurance?
My nephew referred me because he had just switched and saved.
Yeah. How much did you save?
Over 900 Rand.
What are you doing with your saving every month?
I want to go to the Caribbean island. I want to go and get my groove back.
You need to give your nephew a shout out. Give him a shout out, Bonita.
Dale, you are awesome.
And now, she and Mr. Quipman are going to get their groove back. Just think what you could do with the money you save. SMS SAVE to 34473. 2019, it's your time to save. Tell me about how you heard about Outsurance the first time.
I was contacted by a very, very friendly consultant. Gave me the amounts. Honestly, didn't believe it.
Why didn't you believe it?
It was too good to be true.
Now you're making me curious. What was the amount?
1,305 Rand difference. I was like, what? No ways. I screamed on the phone. Other guys sitting around me, like, what's wrong with this guy?
Can we just have a moment of silence?
Thank you, Outsurance.
SMS SAVE to 34473 and make 2019 your time to save.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching SA Today, and we continue with our special elections coverage this week. And right now, a labour issue. Yeah, last week, President Cyril Ramaphosa warned employers not to prevent their workers from voting in Wednesday's general election, saying that government will not hesitate to take action against employers who prevent their employees from exercising their democratic right. Well, Labour Federation COSATU says that it's already receiving reports from workers that some employers are insisting that they come to work despite the voting day being declared a public holiday. So just what are the rights of workers on election day? Well, to give us a view, I'm now joined by employment and labour law expert Osborne Mulatudi. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, so what is the law? Do people have to come to work tomorrow? Can employers say, Osborne, you must come to work tomorrow? What's the situation?
From a legal perspective, the answer is pretty straightforward. In terms of the relevant section in the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, no employer may force an employee to work on a public holiday without that employee's agreement. So that's your starting point. And secondly, tomorrow's day has been declared a public holiday, and therefore any employer who would wish to have his employees at work would have done so with the agreement with those employees or with their trade unions.
So without an agreement, an employee can just say, look, it's a public holiday, I'm not coming to work tomorrow. So I suppose they've had time to think of a plan. So a lot of the shops will be open, petrol stations. They would have had some kind of an agreement with their employer to come to work and maybe vote during the day for a couple of hours, come back. I suppose those kinds of things.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, bear in mind that the date, 8 May 2019, was not announced by the president yesterday. I mean, all of us knew a long time ago that on this particular day we will be exercising our constitutional right to vote. And therefore, one would expect that by this time, employers and employees and those employees who belong to trade unions and those trade unions, they would have made arrangements long time ago, concluded appropriate agreements. Everyone would know who's coming to work tomorrow, who's not coming, who's taking what shift, etc. It's not something that employers can wake up one morning and say, I need you tomorrow, etc. However, there are exceptions. The exception is only the work which is not expected to be completed. Let's say the work starts at 10 p.m. today or midnight, etc. Let's say surgery in a hospital, etc.
Right.
And that work carries on to the following day. There may be exception that an employer may ask the employee to continue working and perhaps give them a day off later in the day to go and exercise their constitutional right.
What are the consequences for employers that force their workers to come to work tomorrow?
The consequences will be severe. I mean, the employees can report those employers to the Department of Labor, and they will have to then dispatch the inspectors to go and check if indeed they breach the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, and there are consequent fines. But I doubt if employers will carelessly or recklessly just require employees to come and work on a public holiday on such an important day without having obtained an agreement either from the employees themselves or from their trade unions.
All right, so employees, what should they do if their employer says, I want you at work tomorrow? What's the best way to have this conversation so that if it does get to a point where it's taken further, they've done the right things?
You know, one of the rationale for requiring employees to work on a public holiday is because the employer, for operational reasons, wants to have a continuous business so that the more the business continues to run, the chances are that the bottom line, the revenue will grow, and that will create probably more jobs. On the other hand, you have employees who may want to earn an extra income, and therefore, if they work on a public holiday, they know that there's a double rate or even an increased higher rate if they work on a public holiday, and also if that day doesn't fall on a normal day that they will be required to work. So all of these are aspects that need to be taken care of between employers and employees way in advance to say, what are we going to do on this particular day? It's a very important day for the country. We're going to vote. However, the chances are that we may not vote the whole day. And therefore, can we make arrangements that, like petrol stations, like your retail stores, etc. So there has to be arrangements well in advance. But coming back to your question, an employee will be well within his rights to refuse to work on a public holiday because he's not given the agreement, and the employer can't do anything, cannot even discipline that employee for that matter.
All right, Osborne, thanks very much indeed. Great seeing you again. I'm sure we'll have you in studio again in the near future. Thanks so much indeed for your time.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. All right, that was employment and labour law expert Osborne Malatude saying that it's your right not to work tomorrow. If there's no agreement with your employer, then you can tell your employer, listen, I'm going to go vote and exercise my constitutional right. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we continue with our special coverage of the elections 2019. Stay with us.
Every year, more and more people all around the country are saving money on their car insurance. Let's meet some of them.
I work for a car dealership. Many of my clients that buy cars have to sort out the insurance.
Yes.
And hearing from them on a daily basis how much money they save from our insurance, I had to make the call myself.
Your clients switched you, the car dealer. How much did you end up saving?
Just over 300 Rand a month. Switch up now, going into the new year. 2019, make it yours. As we say, 2019.
Oh, it hits the spot. 2019. If you think it's a hassle getting a quote, put us to the test. Call or SMS now for a quick quote and make 2019 your time to save. SMS SAVE to 34473.
Well, I'm doing my articles in chartered accountancy, so I have financial knowledge. What she said just made sense, so we switched and saved.
How much did you end up saving?
Almost 450 rand.
You guys have children yet?
No, but the mother-in-law is pushing very hard.
If you can convince your mom-in-law to switch and save, that'll get you 1,000 rand off of your next monthly premium. With the money she saves, it's a win-win situation.
Mother Frida, if you want babies, you must switch and save.
Yo! If you've been with the same insurer for years and haven't recently put OUTsurance to the test, call or SMS now and make 2019 your time to save. SMS SAVE to 34473.
It was a simple telephone call, informed him of the basics. I had an accident. With most insurance, once you've had an accident, they increase your premium. And then when he told me this is what the premium he would be, are you sure? Did you hear that I had an accident?
How much did you end up saving?
Half of my previous premium, almost 500 rand. Start your year off on the right foot. Queen of... Oh, no.
They've all saved. Why shouldn't you? SMS SAVE to 34473 and make 2019 your time to save.
So what happened is I made the phone call and I asked Olisa to just call me back. He explained everything to me, a meaningful conversation.
How much did you actually end up saving?
Almost 750 rands. That's how I switched and saved. But I'm glad our paths crossed.
We could make an OUTsurance connection here. Have you and Tolisa gone out on a date or something?
No, it was just insurance.
Oh, is it your time?
Yeah, it's my time.
Just think what you could do with the money you save. SMS SAVE to 34473. 2019, it's your time to save. How did your path with OUTsurance cross?
And I saw this advert about this guy, Chacha. So Mr. Chacha got me thinking, if I do switch and save, I won't just do the Chacha, I'll be doing the tango.
And the difference that you're now saving?
It's just over 900 rand.
In 3 words, summarize your experience.
Smart, professional, and they saved me money.
You know that last one was like 4 words.
I know, but that's how good they are.
SMS SAVE to 34473 and make 2019 your time to save. Hello and welcome. You're watching the SABC News Channel, independent and impartial. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. I'm Peter Ndora in Johannesburg. And I can tell you that Frances Hurd is in Pretoria at the Results Operations Centre, and we'll be crossing to her in a short while. In the meantime, these are your top stories this hour.
Bongani Bingwa will
Let
have
us
a bit
vote.
more time, and he wants you to stay. Is that okay?
Let us go to the polls on the 8th of May and together determine our country's future.
A message from the President on the eve of the country's general elections. Delays and protests on day 2 of special votes. More police expected to be deployed in Viljoenskroon in the Free State after a clinic and a hall were torched overnight. The Department of Home Affairs' offices will be open around the country until 2100 hours, that's 9 o'clock tomorrow evening, to accommodate the thousands of people who still need to collect their ID books. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged all South Africans to exercise their democratic right and vote in tomorrow's elections. President Ramaphosa says that many people sacrificed everything they had during the apartheid era to secure the rights of all South Africans to vote. Polling stations will be open nationwide at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning and will close at 9 in the evening. The President says that people must make use of this opportunity.
Fellow South Africans, it is 25 years since we all won the right to vote, when South Africans of all races, from different backgrounds, in every part of the country cast their ballots in our first democratic election. With our votes, we ushered in a new era of peace, democracy, and unity that has endured and flourished over the past 25 years. On Wednesday, the 8th of May, all South Africans will once again have an opportunity to decide their own destiny. The day has been declared a public holiday so as to allow all registered voters to go and vote for the party of their choice in national and provincial elections. In doing so, together we will be exercising the right that was won through decades of struggle and sacrifice. We will also be exercising a responsibility that we have to future generations to build a country that is at peace, that is united, democratic, fair, and prosperous. I'm therefore calling on all South Africans to go out and vote on Wednesday, the 8th of May. Voting stations will open at 7 a.m. and close at night at 9 p.m. Please remember to take your green ID book or your smart card ID or a valid temporary ID certificate to the voting station. Remember to vote twice, once for national government and the other for provincial government. We wish all parties well in this election and ask every candidate and every party agent to help ensure a free, fair, and peaceful election. Let us all go and vote for a better tomorrow. Let us vote for a brighter future. Let us go to the polls on the 8th of May and together determine our country's future. I thank you.
So that was the President speaking a little bit earlier, a message to the nation to make sure that all citizens go to the polls tomorrow and exercise that very important democratic vote, as he said, that many sacrificed to make sure that we all get to enjoy. All right, let's go to the Results Operations Centre, The Rock, and sitting there is Francis. Francis, so by now we'll have been voting for 10 hours tomorrow, and I guess by then people will start to be getting excited about the results, which will start to be counted after 9. But by this time tomorrow, we'll all be kind of tired and probably all have marks on our fingers.
Indeed, and the following day we will know if all the predictions, all the polls, etc., were completely off or were pretty accurate. So let's get some more predictions, and I'm happy to be joined by political analyst Professor Suzanne Boyson. You've said some interesting things about small parties, so we are going to have this lengthy ballot tomorrow. Hopefully people don't get confused. 48 parties.
Yes.
You've said that we risk being a caricature of sort of low-level political opportunism. Just explain, do you still believe that?
Yes, so many of these little parties come on what I call the AIC, African Independent Congress model. They saw the small Eastern Cape party growing disproportionately, not just in a previous election, because it was next to the ANC on the national ballot and the provincial ballot, but also even got kingmaker status in some of the big metropolitan municipalities. And I really think so many of the small parties see this as an illustration of what can be the land of milk and honey for small little parties, even if they haven't got any national standing, but just get 1% or 1/4% of the vote.
Because it's not a passion project. If you get enough votes, you can go to Parliament and get that MP salary, basically.
Yes, exactly. And nowadays we probably need the parties need somewhere between 47 and 48,000 votes nationally to get one MP in Parliament. And so even if they just have one strong enclave of support in some area in KwaZulu-Natal or Eastern Cape, they could actually get an MP into Parliament.
So what's interesting is that the the people doing the polling say it depends on turnout. A high turnout could have one sort of outcome, a low turnout another outcome. What are you expecting in terms of turnout, and how does that change what you think could happen in terms of results?
Turnout, some of the better opinion polls are saying it's probably going to be in the range of 70%, just over 70%, which will be slightly lower than previous elections, but still relatively high by all international standards. And it's interesting, polls this for what they worth. I've also been forecasting that if this turnout goes up, the ANC is likely to do marginally worse. And the logic behind that is that people who are very uncertain but who go and vote anyway are more likely to vote for maybe one of the 44 very small parties instead of the ANC, whereas if they stay away, it's likely that disgruntled ANC supporters are those who have been staying away.
How crucial is this vote for you?
This is such an important point in South Africa's democracy. 25 years into democracy is a pivotal point anyway. But then, in addition, it is these 5 years, last 5 years, the last term, have been so eventful. I've been seen so many variable fates of political parties, and in particular also the ANC, which has been very dominant to date. And it will be very interesting to see if after all of the events of the last 5 years, perhaps the ANC can still come out almost resurrected or sustained to the previous level of around 60-62%, but perhaps a little lower. And then we should not forget that polls just before Jacob Zuma was removed from power late 2017 had shown that the ANC is likely to get below 50% if a national election had been held at that point, because before Jacob Zuma was removed. So almost anything
on the new leadership.
50% above that the ANC gets this time will probably be quite a correction.
So 2016 was interesting. Some analysts saying we saw the emergence of coalitions at a local government level. Was that the start of something? Could we see those coalitions develop? Then we're moving away from one party dominance, or could it all reverse because things have changed this time around?
It could very well reverse if the ANC manages to hang on to those above 50% support levels. But then we know that the ANC dominance is fraying. Even if it gets a pretty good vote to this stage, it will be a very conditional, contingent kind of support that it gets, and which would mean...
Is that true? Because we always say ANC voters are loyal.
Party loyalty is not what it used to be. Across the political parties, but in particular also for the ANC, party identification is lower. People are much more inclined to not give blind loyalty to this party and consider here and there some opposition parties, or lending a vote to some of the opposition parties, even if their hearts they feel the ANC is still it, but perhaps try to teach the ANC a lesson, to try to get the ANC to take their constituencies, the people they're representing, more seriously.
Yeah, we're hearing from a lot of politicians, lend us your votes. We'll take care of them. Thank you so much, Professor.
Use that phrase.
Professor Suzanne Boyson, and she will be back with my colleague Bongani Bingwa. So some more analysis from you. Thank you very much. And from me at The Rock, that's it. Let's take you back to Johannesburg, where my colleague Peter Ndoro is standing by.
Francis, thanks very much indeed. So that's the Results Operations Centre, which is going to be a hive of activity from tomorrow, that's for sure. All right, we continue going around the country, and now we go to the Northern Cape, and there we'll find Keith Seister. Keith, thanks very much for joining us. It looks, I don't know, cold, cloudy. What's the situation there? Hello, Keith, can you hear me? Hello, Keith? Hello, Keith? All right, okay, it looks like he can't hear us, but we'll take a short break, and when we come back, hopefully we'll get to be in conversation with Keith Seister, who's in Namakwaland.
When South Africans go to the polls, SABC News gives you names you can trust. Sakina, Criselda, Peter, Stephen, Tsepiso, Francis, Blaine, Leanne. South Africa votes. Live coverage starts Wednesday at 6 a.m. on SABC News.
Solani Mkiva says that they believe that the king should be released and that they are not being opportunistic.
The last 4 years, we have been engaging with government. It cannot be a post-colonial government that begins to jail a king in a context of what actually happened.
Bobby Solomons, he's the spokesperson of the Alex Shutdown Committee, the multi-billion rand Alexander Renewal Project. Nothing came of that.
Community wants to know what really happened to the monies.
The creative director of the label, Mansu, that of course means black is beautiful in Sesotho. What has been your experience in that regard, given, you know, some of the more established labels that you have managed to work with?
It is hard. 15 years is a long time. There's a lot of sacrifice for your family to make for you.
This is the thing. This is it this morning.
Welcome back. You're watching Your Story on SA Today. We've been doing special elections coverage, but another event that we often cover is, of course, legendary races such as the Comrades Marathon. And it does seem, well, stories are that it may not be shown on the SABC, and this follows what looks like failed discussions between Athletics South Africa and the SABCs, leading to a blackout of the Two Oceans Marathon Month. Two organizations have been in talks with which seem to have been fruitful. For an update, let's now talk in studio with Dr. Craig Van Rooyen, who's the SABC's acting COO, and Alec Skosana, who's the Athletics South Africa president. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. So, am I going to wake up and watch the Comrades Marathon or not?
Definitely.
All right.
Thanks, Peter. Today's a proud day because we've reached the principal agreement with Athletics South Africa, and we'll definitely be producing and broadcasting the Comrades Marathon as well as the Cape Town Marathon and Soweto Marathon. But to speak a little bit more about that, I'm going to ask the President of Athletics South Africa to tell us a bit more.
All right, so you must be relieved. I mean, these are big, iconic events and for South Africans to enjoy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks to Dr. Craig. Of course, we came in here today to make sure that the problem that was there is resolved once and for all. And we have had teams before who were negotiating with SABC. And we are proud to announce that the 3 races will be broadcasted by SABC, the Comrades Marathon, the Cape Town Marathons, as well as the Soweto Marathon. And apart from that, there will be other marathons that we'll be negotiating with SABC, where it is very important for such marathons to be broadcasted in different parts of the country. And negotiations for the further contract for the 3-year, it's going to start soon, which is going to focus on 2020, 2021, and 2022. And we have also looked at a number of other important issues of track and field, where our teams travel, where SABC will have to be as close as possible in order for the nation, for the young in particular, to be able to see their icons and their heroes and heroines being awarded for whatever they have been doing in terms of training and all that. And we urge all the people who are involved in these marathons and others to keep on focusing in the preparations for the delivery of the best events in 2019 in South Africa for the South African runners, and all those will be coming from all over the continent and beyond, as we have done over the past years. We know that Comrades Marathon is around the 9th of June, and everybody is willing to go, and we believe that the Comrades Marathon will be able to do as they always do, to make sure that they present all of us by presenting the best of the best race in the day.
Mr. Van Rooyen, it's good for the viewers, I think, to know that these events will be seen. And I'm always getting a sense that there's a new era that's coming into play where there'll be even more coverage than before.
Yes. So, Peter, with all our broadcasts, we try and do a quality broadcast. And with all the broadcasts, we try and keep them to world standards. And most certainly, the Comrades Marathon, the Soweto Marathon, and the Cape Town Marathon and the subsequent marathons, we will be doing a world-class broadcast for those events.
Capability in terms of resources, the SABC has been challenged financially. Will we be able to pull it off? Do we have the resources for it?
Definitely. So you're absolutely right in terms of the SABC not having money. I think that in terms of this types of broadcasting, we do a lot of planning. And mostly in the SABC, we're backed by a very good team. And as you know, the SABC teams are extremely resourceful in terms of getting an event like this done. So I'm more than confident that these events and the future events will be extremely successful.
All right, Mr. Skosana, what are some of the challenges that you've been able to smooth over that's brought on this new era? What were some of the things that you needed to overcome?
Well, some of the challenges, of course, it's a public perception out there, and falsified information like ASA and SABC was the cause of what happened in Two Oceans. It's not only that, there were quite a number of other factors that were at play that SABC could not be able to solve without us, and also us without SABC and the race organizers. But the message that we are sending out there is that whosoever wants to have his or her race broadcasted, the gate is ASA first. Then ASA will speak to SABC as a partner, and in that way you cut a very long and windy communication that is unnecessary. If you write to ASA, ASA will respond to you within a day or so, and they will sit down with SABC and look forward. But of course, we are focused, as you'll know, that we have got track and field, we have got cross country, we have got teams. The greatest athletes of this country ran this year without the broadcast, but that is water under the bridge. And we are focusing to the future. We have ironed out all those issues, and we understand as South Africans that SABC is in a dire need of financial support from elsewhere in order for them to be able to do what they used to do. Of course, we have never had complaints over the past years. Our track and field, our cross country, our road running, even smallest events have been covered via news and all that. And we understand the situation. And I think that's what made all of us to be able to quickly arrive to a decision. And thanks to Mr. Mxakwe, the group CEO and the CEO and the team that was there, as well as the ASA team that was there. So we're looking forward to deliver the events and the whilst we are negotiating behind the scenes.
All right. Will we see you running the Comrades? Will you will you be on the track? All right. Perhaps a final word from you, Mr. Van Rooyen. Do we get a sense that other national sporting events are going to be accommodated one way or another? Are we getting into a period where we're just going to find the resources and we'll be able to assure the public that most of the national events will be seen on the SABC?
Yes. So, Peter, I have to be very direct about this. We mentioned a little bit earlier about the situation that the SABC finds itself in, and we have to be prudent in terms of how we financially manage these types of events going forward. And it may mean that where events are not financially viable, as a broadcaster that's ailing, we may not produce some of them. In the case of Athletics South Africa, I think the president of Athletics South Africa has gone a long way to meet us halfway. And I think Athletics South Africa fully understood the situation that the SABC finds itself in, and we were able to find a middle ground. And for that I'm extremely grateful, because it's such a good event that we would not like to miss out on.
All right, gentlemen, thanks very much indeed. And on behalf of South Africa, thanks for the great news as well, that we'll be able to enjoy these events. Thanks so much indeed for coming through.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
All right, that was Dr. Craig van Rooyen, the SABC's acting COO, and Alex Kosana, who's the Athletics South Africa president. Okay, now until the electoral system has fully brailled ballot papers, any efforts to accommodate visually impaired voters will be second best. That's the complaint by some blind people who went to the polls. People with disability were among those who cast their votes, special votes this week ahead of the election day on Wednesday.
Over 26 million South Africans have been registered to take part in the 2019 general elections.
Rulani Baloyi is a popular SABC journalist. She too cast her ballot on the special voting day, not only because she will be working like all other journalists in the country on Wednesday, but because she is also visually impaired. She says she was underwhelmed by the limited provisions made by the IEC to accommodate her.
I'm still hoping that in my lifetime in the SA electoral system we'll have properly core-brailled ballot papers. I mean, I would imagine one day I will have my own free vote where nobody else knows how I voted. I'll be able to vote like you, where I don't have to rely or trust in one other person to know how I voted.
While some measures have been put in place to assist the blind, it's still a long way off from satisfying their needs.
When I get there, they gave me papers which I thought, I don't know what they were trying to do, but it was not easy for me as a blind person to use. But I think all they have to do is to speak to the National Council for the Blind and to the Blind Workers Organization and say, how do you help us to properly braille this so people can be able to know where they are marking?
But the IEC says they've, however, put in provisions to accommodate blind voters.
For anybody who uses braille, every voting station has been equipped with what we call the universal ballot template, which is a cardboard facility that has braille on it, and we have 10 of them, one for the national ballot paper and then 9 for each of the different provinces. Those were, as I say, all voting stations have been trained and equipped to use those, and anybody asking for that assistance had a right to receive it. We haven't heard specific concerns and complaints in that regard, and we hope that none arise.
While Baloyi's visual impairment does not stop her from doing anything she puts her mind to.
At over 22,900 polling stations countrywide, Rulani Baloyi.
Many like Rulani feel the IEC is not fully accommodating, and as a result, their vote will never be secret. Nozintombi Mia, SABC News, Johannesburg.
All right, and that's where we're going to leave things for SA Today, right here in the studios in Johannesburg. A lot more coming out of the ROC, the Results Operations Centre, coming up shortly. Bongani Bingwa will be taking you through the next half an hour, and then the full view from the top of the hour. From me and the team for now, let's have a good evening, everybody.
Every year, more and more people all around the country are saving money on their car insurance. Let's meet some of them.
I work for the car dealership. Many of my clients that buy cars have to sort out the insurance.
Yes.
And hearing from them on a daily basis how much money they save from our insurance, I had to make the call myself.
Your clients switched you, the car dealer. How much did you end up saving?
Just over 300 rand a month. Switch up now, going into the new year.
Yeah.
2019, make it yours.
Yeah.
As we say, 2019.
Oh, it hits the spot. 2019. If you think it's a hassle getting a quote, put us to the test. Call or SMS now for a quick quote and make 2019 your time to save. SMS SAVE to 34473.
Well, I'm doing my articles in chartered accountancy, so I have financial knowledge. What you said just made sense, so we switched and saved.
How much did you end up saving?
Almost 450 rand.
You guys have children yet?
No, but the mother-in-law is pushing very hard.
If you can convince your mom-in-law to switch and save, that'll get you 1,000 rand off of your next monthly premium. With the money she saves, it's a win-win situation.
Mother Frida, if you want babies, you must switch and save.
Yo! If you've been with the same insurer for years and haven't recently put OUTsurance to the test, call or SMS now and make 2019 your time to save. SMS SAVE to 34473.
It was a simple telephone call, informed him of the basics. I had had an accident. With most insurance, once you've had an accident, they increase your premium. And then when he told me this is what the premium he would be, are you sure? Did you hear that I had an accident?
How much did you end up saving?
Half of my previous premium, almost 500 rand. Start your year off on the right foot. Oh, no.
They've all saved. Why shouldn't you? SMS SAVE to 34473 and make 2019 your time to save.
So what happened is I made the phone call and I asked Olisa to just call me back. He explained everything to me, a meaningful conversation.
How much did you actually end up saving?
Almost 750 rands. That's how I switched and saved. But I'm glad our paths crossed.
We could make an OUTsurance connection here. Have you and Kolisa gone out on a date or something?
No, it was just insurance.
Oh, is it your time?
Yeah, it's my time.
Just think what you could do with the money you save. SMS SAVE to 34473. 2019, it's your time to save. How did your path with OUTsurance cross?
And I saw this advert about this guy, Chacha. So Mr. Chacha got me thinking, if I do switch and save, I won't just do the Chacha, I'll be doing the tango.
And the difference that you're now saving
is just over 900 rand.
In 3 words, summarize your experience.
Smart, professional, and they saved me money.
You know that last one was like 4 words.
I know, but that's how good they are.
SMS SAVE to 34473 and make 2019 your time to save.
Thirteen and a half hours before South Africans go to polls for the 6th time since the advent of democracy in a general election. The countdown has begun. My name is Bongani Bingwa. Welcome to this special election update. We're with you until 6 o'clock this evening. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged all South Africans to exercise their democratic right and vote in tomorrow's elections. Ramaphosa says many people sacrificed everything they had during the apartheid era to secure the right of all South Africans to be able to vote. Polling stations open nationwide at 7 in the morning tomorrow and will close at 9 in the evening. The president says people must make use of the opportunity.
Fellow South Africans, it is 25 years since we all won the right to vote, when South Africans of all races, from different backgrounds, in every part of the country cast their ballots in our first democratic election. With our votes, we ushered in a new era of peace, democracy, and unity that has endured and flourished over the past 25 years. On Wednesday, the 8th of May, all South Africans will once again have an opportunity to decide their own destiny. The day has been declared a public holiday so as to allow all registered voters to go and vote for the party of their choice in national and provincial elections. In doing so, together we will be exercising the right that was won through decades of struggle and sacrifice. We will also be exercising a responsibility that we have to future generations to build a country that is at peace, that is united, democratic, fair, and prosperous. I'm therefore calling on all South Africans to go out and vote on Wednesday, the 8th of May. Voting stations will open at 7 a.m. and close at night at 9 p.m. Please remember to take your green ID book or your smart card ID or a valid temporary ID certificate to the voting station. Remember to vote twice, once for national government and the other for provincial government. We wish all parties well in this election and ask every candidate and every party agent to help ensure a free, fair and peaceful election. Let us all go and vote for a better tomorrow. Let us vote for a brighter future. Let us go to the polls on the 8th of May and together determine our country's future. I thank you.
Together determine our country's future. The words there of the President of the Republic, urging all South Africans to exercise their democratic right to vote tomorrow. As I say, it's a little under 13 and a half hours before the polls open at 7 a.m. Tomorrow morning. Well, we're joined now by Dr. Susan Boyson, the Director of Research at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. She is, of course, at our Results Center, our Operations Center. Dr. Boyson, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. The President says we've got to make sure, all South Africans, that this poll is free, fair, and importantly, peaceful.
Yes, indeed. So much depends on whether the result at the end of the day can be deemed to have been free, fair, and a couple of adjectives can be added to that. And that is where we see the Independent Electoral Commission at the moment also scrambling to make sure that the preparations the days before and around the special votes as well actually go very smoothly, because one just needs a few parties that may be disgruntled and deem that some processes that might have gone wrong would have tangibly affected their fate in this election, and they can lodge complaints, objections that could delay, or if it's really serious, derail the election results and the election as such. So much hinges on the IEC getting things right in these days, and that is when South Africans will go, as President Ramaphosa said, determine their destiny. And one could add, also determine the destiny of quite a number of politicians, around 400 just in the parliament, for example.
Boyson, I mean, of course, the IC is, doing this for the 6th time as far as the general election is concerned. Their processes are well ironed, one would assume. But one of the things that we've seen emerge, particularly in the last couple of days, are concerns about various hotspots around the country. We've seen the deployment now of even the SANDF in KZN, for example, to help look after strategic assets, we are told. The National Police Commissioner was crisscrossing a number of provinces. There is this sense that we are seeing a level of disaffection that might bubble, to the surface tomorrow. What is your sense of that?
My sense is that up to a point, we have seen it before. In previous elections 5 years ago, 10 years ago, in each of these cases, there have been several very serious hotspots where people were very concerned, in the run-up in particular, that elections would be disrupted and people would not be able to vote. In most of those cases, elections did happen on the day where the communities really use this opportunity of the limelight when it comes to elections, and the power, leveraging power, that they are taken very seriously because they have the power to potentially disrupt elections. And that's where representation becomes serious. And so communities will be using that. Simultaneously, we know that protests are continuously rising in South Africa. The levels of protests before this election have been higher than they were before the election 5 years ago. And so it could also be that voters are becoming more inclined to to take their pre-election protests right into elections on election day. And I guess that is where the big potential problem is.
Yeah.
But the pre-election day threats do not necessarily translate into problems on the day.
So we've seen, for example, today in the Free State in Viljoenskroon, we saw the torching of a community hall that would have been used as a polling station. We're hearing concerns arising out of places like Giyani, for example, that voters might be intimidated by those who have opted not to vote to make sure that they also don't participate in the election. Is it your sense that the levels of dissatisfaction we are seeing, unlike in previous elections, could mean the landscape could shift just a little after tomorrow?
Yes, indeed. I definitely think the landscape can shift, and it has been shifting already. Protests have been more inclined in the last 5 years, increasingly so, to use violence in terms of torching buildings, mostly public infrastructure, sometimes other types of infrastructure as well. So that has become a bigger ingrained part of political culture in South Africa. And I'm not surprised that it translates into some of the infrastructure around elections as well. And a big trend in South Africa is the form of parallel democracy. South Africans no longer believe that elections will be sufficient, that elections will determine their fate, that it will be sufficient to hold politicians account. So many communities around the country believe in that power of protest and believe that that is the certain way in which they can bring politicians into their communities to help get accountability and possibly extract promises for better services. If once they have promises, then maybe there's a better chance of actually getting delivery, even just of basic services. We don't even talk about jobs and quality of life.
All right, we'll leave it there. Dr. Susan Boyson, thank you very much for your insights. A parallel democracy, she says. Susan Boyson, of course, the Director of Research at the Mpumalanga Institute for Strategic Reflection at our National Operations Center at the IEC. Now, the National Police Commissioner, Kehla Sithole, visited Mahikeng in the Northwest Province today to do a final check of his troops' readiness ahead of tomorrow's poll. Sithole started with a parade at the Joint Tactical Headquarters in Mahikeng before proceeding to one of the hotspots that have been identified in the area. 83 areas in the northwest have been marked as hotspots. Villages around Mahikeng, Graipan, Khanyisa have been hit hard by protests, with residents torching vehicles and government buildings and blockading roads. However, 51,000 police officers will be deployed around the country to ensure safety and security during elections. Commissioner Sithole also visited a voting station in the troubled Ditakong village.
The actual instruction, which I think we have corrected now, is that they must be here permanently together with the IEC, because the voting station may be attacked, especially when you have the ballot boxes now closed. They may also make attempts to try and maybe steal the ballot boxes or rob them.
Police officers are there to escort our security materials, particularly our ballot papers, but they should not be seen as looking out for danger, because we do not expect any danger whatsoever.
Solani Mkiva says that they believe that the king should be released and that they are not being opportunistic.
The last 4 years, we have been engaging with government. It cannot be a post-colonial government that begins to jail a king in a context of what actually happened.
Bobby Solomons, he's the spokesperson of the Alex Shutdown Committee, the multi-billion rand Alexander Renewal Project. Nothing came of that.
Community wants to know what really happened to the monies.
The creative director of the label, Mansu, that of course means black is beautiful in Sesotho. What has been your experience in that regard, given some of the more established labels that you have managed to work with?
It is hard. 15 years is a long time. There's a lot of sacrifice for your family to make for you.
This is the thing. This is it this morning.
When South Africans go to the polls, SABC News gives you names you can trust. Sakina, Criselda, Peter, Stephen, Tsepiso, Francis, Blaine, Leanne. South Africa votes. Live coverage starts Wednesday at 6 a.m. on SABC News. All right, the voice of every South African is certainly going to be heard tomorrow as many of us go to the voting stations. But of course, people aren't waiting necessarily for 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. They've been having their voices and opinions heard on social media. We're joined now by our social media producer, Asra Bramdeo, to talk about everything related to what people are saying online. Asra, a very good evening to you. We're counting down to tomorrow morning, but people are already, of course, making their voices heard. Some campaigning for their political parties, and as I understand it, you also got a chance this morning to vote yourself.
That's right. I'm one of the 775,000 people who have registered for a special vote, and yes, was able to cast my vote very successfully, I think. So yes, my voice has been heard, Bongani.
Talk to me. We've got a new, fantastic new app for the SABC. SABC News, of course, being online now. How is this tool going to be able to help people interface with what's going on and the views that many people are sharing online? We're having a little bit of an aerial view there of that screen in front of you. Talk me through what you have there.
Bongani, we're so excited about this app. I think it's just amazing. We're constantly updating it with the result. We will be constantly updating it with results as the results start happening on Wednesday night. But in the meantime, you can catch channel 404 right on your phone. You can catch any one of the SABC's radio stations via your phone. It is just the most amazing thing. Our app is available at the App Store, at Google Play, and we want everybody to go and access it. For example, we have content like this. Where will your party leaders be voting tomorrow? And we all know that elections are a little bit of a celebrity watch as well. We want to see where the people, where our leaders are going to be voting. And in this case, for example, you can access this article on our app. You can access it on our website. You'll be able to figure out exactly where people are voting. So, for example, let's look at Kgalema Motlanthe, who will be voting in and around Johannesburg, together with a number of other leaders. Musi Maimane, for example. David Makura will be voting around Johannesburg. Kenneth Mishwe will be voting around Johannesburg. And of course, that is what we're trying to do, bring you as much news as possible. You know, Bongani, we talk about digital, and unfortunately some things in nature can't be helped, so I'm going to be leaning across the screen, of course, to share some of the information that we have with you. But for example, quick facts, you know, every time we watch election news, even as a journalist who has been covering elections for a number of years, there's so much interesting information to find. So at Digital News, we're providing all that for you. Stuff that we might not be able to fit in on TV, for example, that you will be able to catch on SABC News digital platforms.
All right, we'll leave it there. Asra, our social media producer at our operations center at the IEC, Asra Bramdeo there, talking everything to do with social media. Now, if you don't yet have our SABC app, then I think you're missing out, because, of course, you can watch all of this content rather, on your mobile device. Remember, of course, to use the hashtag #SADecides, hashtag #SAElections 2019 to be part of our conversations. Right, the Eastern Cape has had the highest number of special votes nationally, with 85,200 eligible voters registered. The province had problems in certain areas, testing the IEC's ability to deal with some of the challenges that are likely to rise again tomorrow. We cross now to our reporter, Janine Lee, in the IEC Centre in East London for an update. Janine, a very good evening to you. As I said in my introduction there, in many ways, what we see during special voting is a kind of dress rehearsal for the big day when most of the population goes to vote. Hello, Janine. All right, we seem to be having a technical problem in terms of the sound there with Janine. We'll give you an update once again in terms of what's happening in East London. We'll try and reconnect with Janine and bring you that story. Stay with us.
Every year, more and more people all around the country are saving money on their car insurance. Let's meet some of them.
Tell me how you feel about being in one of these insurance ads that you've seen on TV.
It's exciting. The husband is a bit jealous.
When you did make that call, what was the experience like?
They listened to you and they helped you save.
How much did you end up saving?
Almost 500 rand a month. With the savings, we can do more things as a family. Switch and save.
Yes! When?
Now.
Right now?
Yes.
Tell them.
It's your time, it's your time, it's your time, it's your time.
If you think it's a hassle getting a quote, put us to the test. Call or SMS now for a quick quote and make 2019 your time to save. SMS SAVE to 34473.
So how did you hear about insurance?
So it was a TV ad. Normal day-to-day people hearing their testimonials and hearing how much insurance saved them. You want to put up your hand and say, that's me. I want to save money. Often you see these ads and you think, okay, well, they've been told what to say, but it's not. And you ask the question.
You're not a professional actor?
No.
How much did you end up saving?
300 rand. Cha-cha.
If you've been with the same insurer for years and haven't recently put insurance to the test, call or SMS now and make 2019 your time to save. SMS SAVE to 34473.
So how did your path cross with insurance?
My nephew referred me because he had just switched and saved.
Yeah. How much did you save?
Over 900 rand.
What are you doing with your saving every month?
I want to go to the Caribbean island. I want to go and get my groove back.
You need to give your nephew a shout out. Give him a shout out, Bonnie.
Dale, you are awesome.
And now, she and Mr. Quipman are going to get their groove back.
They've all saved. Why shouldn't you? SMS SAVE to 34473 and make 2019 your time to save.
So what happened is I made the phone call and I asked Kolisa to just call me back. He explained everything to me, a meaningful conversation.
How much did you actually end up saving?
Almost 750 rands. That's how I switched and saved. But I'm glad our paths crossed.
We could make an insurance connection here. Have you and Kolisa gone out on a date or something?
No, it was just insurance.
Oh, is it your time?
Yeah, it's my time.
Just think what you could do with the money you save. SMS SAVE to 34473. 2019, it's your time to save.
Made a call, so what did I have to lose, right? I had the nicest conversation with Naz. He ended up saving me over 1,000 rand.
What?
Yeah.
How long were you then with your previous insurer?
Around 2009.
Nearly a decade.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money there that you could have saved, right? Let's focus on the future. If you were to give somebody advice about starting off the new year.
Make 2019 yours. Have a 2019
SMS SAVE to 34473 and make 2019 your time to save.
Right, welcome back to our special elections update. As I was saying a little moment before, the Eastern Cape has had the highest number of special votes nationally, 85,200 of them eligible to register. Of course, there were some niggles, and that surely did test the IEC's ability to deal with some of the challenges that will probably pop up tomorrow. Let's cross now back to our reporter Janine Lee at the IEC Centre in East London. Janine, some niggles in the system, but most of the special voting went well today.
Thanks, Bongani. Yeah, it's been a really busy day today as well as yesterday for the IEC officials, given the fact that we have the most number of, as you mentioned, special voters registered to cast their special votes. So the IEC officials have been all across the province, visiting homes and doing special votes, as have our reporters here in the Eastern Cape. They've been in all corners of the province and they've brought you the good news stories, the bad news stories. There's always a bad news story somewhere along the line. But the IEC has managed to deal with the problems that have come up over the last 2 days extremely well. If we think about yesterday, there was protest, service delivery protest action in Ginsburg. That was dealt with swiftly. There were 11 arrests made. So the IEC is working really closely with the police police to make sure that this kind of behavior is stopped in its tracks and that it doesn't spill over into election day tomorrow. But to tell me more is the IEC, the head honcho here. I'm lucky to be joined by her. She's very, very busy. Kayakazi Magudumana. Kayakazi, it's been a rough 2 days for you guys, but almost a dummy run in the lead up to tomorrow. But briefly, can we speak about tomorrow? Yesterday, there was a lot of service delivery protest action that was dealt with very effectively by the IEC.
Oh yes. Yesterday, Janine, we woke up to about 47 stations that were affected by community protests, and we just could not access those voting stations. But because of the assistance of the SAPS, we were able to do so. So we had 47 stations that opened slightly later than we were supposed to. I can safely say that we are working very closely with the SAPS. The Provincial Commissioner was even here in this facility this morning to endorse that they will not take anything lightly when it comes to people that hinder access to the voting facilities tomorrow.
There were some hiccups again today, where some people couldn't actually vote. Talk us through that in those areas, and then what happens next for those people?
Yes, if I talk about yesterday, I'm speaking of 47 voting stations, but today we only had 2 incidents. One is in Bizana and one in Tabangulu. Unfortunately, the one in Tabangulu remained closed until 5 o'clock. There was political leadership that was on the ground to deal with the issue. They addressed the community members, but unfortunately we could not open. We are being assisted in terms of interventions overnight and the SAPS deployment of more police in the voting station or in that locality, as well as more SAPS for security reasons for security for our presiding officers to the voting station, so that there is access to that voting station tomorrow morning at 6. Remember, we have to be at the station at 6, an hour before opening time. I can safely say that is the only problem that we're having, of having 14 people that were expecting us to visit their homes today that unfortunately did not see us coming. But I can safely say to you, those people are still eligible to vote tomorrow. We'll be waiting for them, and I'm appealing to all political parties to assist with transport where possible, because unfortunately we cannot administer any special votes tomorrow.
Kayakazi, we've run out of time. We're going to have to leave it there. We will be talking to you a lot over the next few days. From us here at the IE Centre in East London, it's back to you in Pretoria.
Right, thank you very much, Janine. Through Pretoria, we are, of course, broadcasting here in Johannesburg at the SABC. Now, Viljoenskroon in the Free State has been under the spotlight. That's after a clinic and a community hall that was meant to be a polling station were torched. The burning of buildings coincides with an ongoing service delivery protest there. SABC News spoke to some residents who complained about a lack of services, including safe and drinking water and housing. For a response on that issue, we're joined live now from Bloemfontein by the MEC for Police, Roads and Transport in the Free State, Mr. Sam Mashinini. Very good evening to you, MEC. Thank you so much for talking to us. What's your response to the torching of a polling station today in Viljoenskroon? Of course, the issue there very much about service delivery there.
Hello.
Can you hear me, MEC?
Good evening. I am struggling to get your voice. There is a noise at the background.
Let me try again. Maybe there's a noise where you are. What's your response to the torching of a polling station today in Viljoenskroon? MEC, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Your response to that torched polling station in Viljoenskroon?
Look, as the province, we had a very nice day in terms of people going to the polling stations from yesterday. I'm referring to the special vote from yesterday and today, except that today we experienced this problem from yesterday evening in Viljoenskroon, and the police are out there in their numbers. We have basically beefed up the team that is there. What we want to say to the people of Viljoenskroon is that it is the constitutional right of every citizen in this country to vote and exercise his or her own right. So no one has got the right to stop any person to go and vote. That's our plea, and I'm appealing to our people not to stop other people to exercise their own right.
MUC, obviously the torching of government buildings can be and must be condemned, but at the same time a number of the residents there that we spoke to as the SABC expressing really dissatisfaction not only with services not being delivered, but really saying that government has been unresponsive, even arrogant in terms of addressing their concerns.
Look, the law in this country does not stop a person to protest. But what has been raised up front is that there is no need for one to be violent and actually touch government property. That's what we are actually condemning. It should not happen, and our people should not allow that.
All right, we'll leave it there. MEC Sam Mashinini in the Free State talking to us. They're condemning the torching of a polling station in Viljoenskroon in the Free State. Right, that brings us to the end of our special elections update. Every day this week, we'll give you a quick half an hour look at the hotspots, the major developments throughout the day to give you a sense of how things are going. The time is ticking. The clock is ticking because, of course, at 7 o'clock, the polls will open for most South Africans. So make your mark, make your voice heard. Until tomorrow, from me, Bongani Bingwa, ubusuku benzolo. Good night.